Welcome to Wife Cheating Story. I hope you have an enjoyable and relaxing time listening. Let's get started.
Still remember the night my world spun out of control. My wife whispering into her phone, avoiding my gaze, then casually mentioning a business trip to Hawaii. My gut twisted, suspecting more than just work. When I discovered the truth, her tangled affair with our daughter's teacher, rage and heartbreak fought for space in my chest. No one expects the quiet engineer to strike back, but I refuse to remain her compliant fool. Let her enjoy those island sunsets, unaware I'm pulling every string for payback. She thinks she knows me? She's about to find out how far I'll go. Before we begin, let me know where you're tuning in from down in the comments. And if you enjoy this story, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss our next tale. I used to believe my life was just about perfect. Every morning, I'd sit in the kitchen sipping coffee from my old Chicago Cubs mug, glancing at the family calendar taped to the fridge. Meetings at work, Clara's extracurriculars, reminders about Sophia's yoga class. Our schedule was crammed, but it gave me a sense of structure. I enjoyed routine. Routine felt safe. At 41, I guess I got used to feeling that I'd finally checked off all the boxes. Stable career, loving wife, bright daughter, decent house in a good suburb. The usual American dream stuff, right? That morning about 3 weeks ago was when I first sensed something off. Sophia was pacing around the living room, phone clenched in her hand, whispering like she was scared someone might overhear. I assumed it was one of her old college friends calling about some weekend trip they'd been planning, or maybe her mother complaining about something. But I remember how her eyes flicked toward me when I stepped into the room. It was a look that said, "Don't listen." The second she caught my gaze, she turned her back, mumbled a quick goodbye to whoever was on the phone, and stuffed it in her pocket. I tried not to jump to conclusions. Sophia had always been a private person in certain ways. She didn't like me reading over her shoulder if she was texting or rummaging through her purse if she left it on the kitchen counter. I figured it was just how she was raised. Her mother's side of the family was big on boundaries. Still, I felt this creeping sense of unease. People say trust is everything in a marriage. I used to believe we had that trust down pat. But seeing her so guarded that morning sparked a flicker of doubt in my mind, and it lingered all day, growing bigger until it was tough to ignore. On my drive to the office, I cranked the radio louder than usual, some talk show discussing rising gas prices and a new sports scandal. Yet I hardly absorbed a word. My mind kept drifting back to Sophia's tense expression, that phone call, and the way she'd quickly cut it off. By the time I reached the parking lot, my mood had soured. I had a full day of engineering meetings to handle, but it was hard to push away the thought that something wasn't quite right at home. During lunch, I confided in my colleague and longtime friend Tom Bishop. He's in his late 40s, divorced, and frequently jokes that he's become the office's resident marital meltdown consultant. He listened quietly as I described Sophia's odd behavior. "Might be nothing, Andy," he said, leaning back in his chair. "Could be a surprise party she's planning. You never know with wives, or it could be something more serious." That last bit put an uncomfortable weight on my chest. I hated how easy it was to jump to serious thoughts like an affair, or financial trouble, or a health scare. I brushed it off, telling Tom I was just paranoid. He shrugged. "Better to keep your eyes open, though." That evening, I tried to pay more attention to Sophia's usual patterns. She was a manager at a local marketing firm, had been for several years. She used to come home around 6, rummage through the mail, change into sweatpants, then chat with me about Clara's day. We'd do a quick dinner, maybe watch TV or read. Lately, though, she'd come home looking distracted. She'd slip into the bedroom for a phone call or hide away in our little home office with the laptop. I once asked if everything was okay at work. She said she was just under pressure with a new client campaign. That night, her routine changed again. She arrived even later, around 8, claiming she had a team happy hour. She didn't mention it earlier, which was weird for her. I asked how it went, trying not to sound accusatory. "It was fine," she said, shrugging. "Just office gossip and cheap drinks." She barely looked at me when she spoke. Even her tone felt distant. I wondered if she was fighting with me in her head about something I hadn't done. But we hadn't argued recently, so either I'd missed something, or she was hiding something else. Clara, our 18-year-old daughter, seemed distant too. She spent a lot of time in her room, which wasn't unusual for a teenager, but she'd become more secretive in her own way, less chit-chat at the dinner table, fewer jokes about her friends at school. I caught her once texting rapidly under the table, glancing up at me with guilty eyes. She used to be open about her conversations, telling me about her best friend Fiona or her boyfriend Ben. But lately, she kept her phone face down around me and her mother. It felt like they both had secrets swirling around me, leaving me clueless in the center. One Saturday, I decided enough was enough. We typically had a little family breakfast, either pancakes or scrambled eggs, depending on who woke up first. That morning, I woke early. I was determined to get some clarity, maybe open up a conversation. The pancake batter was half ready when Sophia rushed into the kitchen, rummaging for her keys, hair still damp from the shower. "Babe, you heading out?" I asked, spatula in hand. She barely looked at me. "Yeah, I promised Judy I'd help her with a volunteer event." She fumbled the words a bit. Judy was a co-worker who lived across town. I'd never heard about an early Saturday volunteer gig, but I nodded, pretending to accept the explanation. She grabbed a piece of toast and left without a kiss goodbye. Clara came downstairs 15 minutes later, her hair in a messy ponytail. "Mom left already?" she asked, glancing at the half-burnt pancakes in the pan. Her eyebrows rose like she was surprised. "Yeah, apparently. Something about volunteering with Judy," I replied. Clara's face flashed a strange look, almost like she was about to say something, then thought better of it and clamped her mouth shut. Another piece of the puzzle fell into place, a puzzle I hadn't even realized existed until recently. The rest of the weekend followed the same pattern. I'd try to engage both of them. They'd give me half smiles or partial truths. I ended up spending most of Sunday alone in the garage, tuning up my car's engine and thinking in circles. Sure, maybe I was overreacting, but I'd never felt this gap between me and Sophia before. We married young, right after college. She was the outgoing one, always pulling me into social gatherings or making me try new hobbies. I was the cautious, methodical guy making sure the bills were paid, the house was in good repair, the future stable. We balanced each other out for years. Now it felt like that balance was unraveling. The hush in our house was loud. In the evenings, my mind replayed the small clues, the phone calls she ended the second I entered the room, the times she worked late, the charged glances between her and Clara I wasn't meant to see. Was it some mother-daughter secret I wouldn't understand? Or was it more complicated than that? Late at night, I'd roll over in bed, feeling the warmth of Sophia's sleeping body. A pang of guilt washed over me for suspecting her of wrongdoing. But that inkling of doubt didn't fade. If anything, it grew stronger every time she pulled away. I tried to push it down by focusing on everyday tasks. But even at the office, I found myself checking my phone, half expecting a bizarre text from Sophia or some slip-up. Nothing came. So I'd bury myself in mechanical designs, engineering spreadsheets. In the quiet moments, though, my mind wandered back to her. I told myself, if there's an issue, we'll talk it out. We always had in the past. Still, deep down, an uneasy voice whispered that I might not recognize the woman I married if she laid all her cards on the table. And it scared the hell out of me. That Sunday night, as we prepared for the new week, Clara stuck her head into my home office. "Night, Dad," she said softly. It was about 10 p.m. Sophia was already in bed. I looked up, sensing Clara wanted to say more. Her eyes flicked toward the hallway as though she was worried Sophia might overhear. I opened my mouth to ask if anything was wrong, but Clara simply gave me a thin smile and stepped back, shutting the door gently. I watched that door for a long minute before finally turning back to the blank email on my laptop screen. My reflection in the dark monitor looked worried and older than I remembered. Things weren't normal, and my gut told me something big was about to crack open. Despite all my rationalizing, a single thought looped through my mind. If there's a secret, I need to find it out fast. Because once the illusion of a perfect life starts to crumble, it's impossible to tape it back together without examining every broken piece. I remember it vividly, a Tuesday evening that started out ordinary enough. I was reading a product design manual on the couch, still in my work clothes, while Sophia clattered around in the kitchen. Clara was at a friend's house for a group project, or so she said. The smell of stir-fry onions drifted through the living room, and I was about to ask Sophia if she needed help when she poked her head around the corner, wearing that unreadable expression I'd started to dread. "Andrew, can you come to the kitchen a sec?" Her voice was calm, but had this unusual edge. I put the manual aside, heartbeats already thumping in my ears. It was similar to how a boss might call you into their office without telling you why. Usually, it's never good news. "Sure," I said, wandering in behind her. She tapped off the stove burner and placed the spatula down, then turned to face me. A deep breath. "We need to talk." My stomach twisted. Over the years, I'd learned "we need to talk" is like a landmine in marriage. Typically, it's big, and rarely is it pleasant. "Is something wrong?" I asked softly, trying to keep my voice steady. Sophia squared her shoulders, arms folded. "Andrew, I'm going to say this plainly, and I hope you'll hear me out without—" She paused. "Without losing it." I forced a thin smile. "Go ahead." She hesitated just long enough for me to feel sweat on my palms. Then it all came out in a few breathless sentences. "I've been seeing someone else. Physically. For about a year. It's not emotional. I still love you. But my needs—" She waved a hand as though summarizing a complicated concept. "They're bigger than what we have. I never intended to hurt you, but I can't stop, Andrew. I need it." For a second, I thought I'd misheard. My entire body went cold. "What are you talking about?" I finally managed. My voice sounded foreign. She swallowed hard, eyes flicking away from mine. "Marcus Harrington is his name. He's Clara's teacher, yes. We met at a school function last year. At first, I just liked talking to him. Then things escalated. We've been discreet. I never wanted you to find out." I felt like the kitchen air had been sucked away. "Marcus Harrington?" The name echoed. All sorts of alarm bells rang in my head. He's Clara's teacher, I thought. He teaches history or something. I couldn't quite remember. "And you for a year?" My words stumbled. Sophia nodded, looking oddly resolute, as if she'd rehearsed this conversation. "I'm not proud of it, but I also don't regret it. It's something I needed, physically." "And you—" She looked me up and down. "You and I haven't been in sync that way for a while." I was speechless. My mind reeled with images of her and this man I barely knew. Anger, hurt, confusion, everything flared up at once. You're telling me this now because—" Her expression hardened. "I'm telling you now because it's getting more serious. We're going on a trip to Hawaii soon. He's paying. I need you to understand that this doesn't change how I feel about you, but I can't go on lying. If you can't handle it, I get it. We can talk about separation or a divorce, but that's not what I want. I want us to continue as we are, with the addition of Marcus." I stared at her in disbelief. My wife of 20 years was calmly saying she intended to share a bed with another man, openly, and expected me to be okay with it? A wave of humiliation washed over me. You want me to allow you to cheat?" My voice cracked. "Are you even hearing yourself, Sophia?" She stepped closer, trying to grab my hand. I yanked it away. "It's not cheating if we agree, Andrew," she said. "This is about my needs. You've barely been able to, well, satisfy them in the last couple years. It's just biology. People get older. Drives change." My head pounded. "That's how you see me?" was all I could think to say. She sighed, exasperated. "I still love you, but you can't fulfill everything for me anymore. It's no one's fault. I'm not leaving you unless you force me to. We can remain married, keep the house, keep our routines. This arrangement can be discreet. Clara's old enough to handle it. She won't judge. She's actually known for a while." If my heart had felt squeezed before, now it felt stomped on. "Clara knows?" My eyes stung. That can't be true. She would have said something. Sophia shrugged. "Why would she risk hurting you if you'd never find out otherwise? She's supportive. She even joked about me going away with Marcus. She wants me to be happy." Everything was coming at me too fast. I tried to maintain some shred of composure. "Sophia, this is insane. You're basically giving me a choice between letting you keep your boyfriend or divorcing you." She raised her chin. "Those are the options. I'm sorry you're upset, but I won't apologize for wanting what I need." I'd prefer if we stayed together, don't forget. Divorce means you'd lose half your assets, plus child support until Clara's out of the house. And let's be honest, Andrew, you're not going to come out on top if we go that route. That threat landed like a punch to the gut. Wow, I muttered. I never thought you'd use finances as leverage. I guess I don't know you anymore. The woman standing in front of me had Sophia's face, but her words felt cold and calculated. Her expression softened, but just barely. It's just reality. I'm not trying to be cruel, Andrew. I've held this in for a year to avoid hurting you. Now it's time I stop pretending. Think about it logically, okay? My going to Hawaii doesn't actually change anything if you didn't know about it before. You'll barely notice I'm gone for a week. Then I come back, and life goes on. A tingling numbness spread from my chest to my fingertips. I was shaking with a mix of outrage and heartbreak. You realize, I said slowly, there's no going back from this conversation. Even if I said yes, we'd never be the same. Sophia nodded. I know, but living a lie isn't better. And if you choose the alternative divorce, well, it's your call, but you should think carefully. I'm not the only one who will suffer. She turned to the stove and flicked the burner back on, resuming cooking like we'd just discussed the weather. A second later, she glanced back at me. Let's have dinner. We can circle back if you want, or just let it settle for now. I don't want us to fight. I couldn't even look at her. My mind screamed at me to say get out, but I couldn't form the words. Part of me wanted to rage, to shout that her needs didn't justify betrayal. Another part felt paralyzed, fearing the financial or emotional fallout if we ended our marriage. I knew it was a coward's reaction, but I didn't see a clear path forward. I mumbled something about needing fresh air and walked out the back door, stepping onto our small patio. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and pink. I leaned on the railing, feeling like my entire life had been flipped over in the span of 5 minutes. It wasn't just about sex. It was about loyalty, respect, and the vows we took at that old church 2 decades back, for better or worse. The words echoed in my head. When did those stop meaning anything to her? I heard the sliding door open behind me, but I didn't turn around. Dinner's ready, Sophia said softly, as if the conversation we'd just had was no big deal. As if telling your spouse you're in a year-long affair was something you could just drop and then pick up a fork to enjoy stir-fry. I'm not hungry, I said, voice tight. I'm gonna go for a drive. Andrew. Before she could say more, I stepped off the patio, walked around the side of the house, and got into my car. My hands trembled on the steering wheel. I just needed to be away from her. I drove aimlessly for close to an hour, weaving through the neat, tree-lined streets of our suburban neighborhood. Houses glowed warmly from within, each presumably filled with couples who might have their own secrets. I wondered how many had faced betrayal like mine. When I finally pulled into a parking lot near a closed grocery store, I felt tears welling up. Anger simmered too. She had planned this entire conversation so calmly. That was the worst part, her sense of calm. Like she had all the angles figured out. The mention of child support, the insinuation that Clara was on her side, it was all part of her strategy. She was steps ahead of me, and I hated feeling blindsided. I shut my eyes and took a few deep breaths. The old Andrew Carter might have swallowed his pride and rationalized that maybe this was something couples overcame. But that night, I made a decision. If she wanted me to be a doormat, I'd show her how wrong she was. If she thought she held all the cards, I'd show her I knew a few strategies of my own. One last long sigh, and I turned the ignition, heading back. My head still spun, but a kernel of determination had ignited inside me. She wanted a silent, accepting partner. Maybe she'd get silence for now, but acceptance? That was off the table. A few days slid by in an uneasy stalemate. Sophia tried acting like nothing had changed, as if my silent brooding was just a passing mood swing. I forced myself to stay composed. Each night I'd slip into bed, lay next to her without touching, then stare at the ceiling until she drifted off. I barely slept. Instead, I stewed about her confession, her threatened divorce, and everything in between. It was during one of those tense nights that I noticed Clara was being especially odd. She'd come home from school, vanish into her room for hours, and speak in hushed voices on the phone. If I knocked and asked if she wanted dinner, She'd crack open the door an inch and say, "I'll just grab something later, Dad. Busy with homework." One evening, I decided to check up on her. It was around 9. Usually, she'd have come down to ask about tomorrow's lunch money or mention some new video she found funny. This time, she was practically invisible. As I walked down the hall, I heard Clara's voice soft, a little giggle, then a hush. She was talking to someone on speakerphone. I didn't want to barge in, but I felt this compulsion to hear if she'd mentioned Sophia or Marcus. So I eased my steps, holding my breath just outside her door. My heart thudded. Through the thin wood, I caught snippets of conversation. "Mom's freaking out," Clara murmured. "Yeah, that's the plan. She's wants me to keep Dad in the dark. Hawaii can't believe it's happening soon." Then came a low laugh, followed by, "No, he has no clue. He thinks it's volunteer stuff or some random friend. So dumb, right?" A jolt of anger shot through me. So Clara was in on this from the start. Suddenly, her weird behavior, her secrecy, the texts under the table, it all made sense. Her teacher was the someone else her mom was meeting, and Clara had been covering for them. They planned the Hawaii trip together, wove a web of lies about it being some mother-daughter friend getaway. My own daughter was mocking me behind my back, calling me so dumb. The betrayal felt like a punch to the gut. Clara's voice resumed. "Yeah, it'll be a full week. Marcus said it's an anniversary or something. Mom told me she's never been happier. I think Dad just, well, he can't meet her needs, so it's better this way." Another quiet chuckle. "Look, I gotta go. Night." I heard her footsteps approach the door. Panicking, I tiptoed back down the hallway and pretended to exit the bathroom. She emerged, phone in hand, hair disheveled like she'd been lying in bed. "Dad?" she said, eyes wide. "What are you doing?" "Nothing," I lied, faking a yawn. "Just, heading downstairs for some water. You okay?" She blinked, looked slightly relieved. "Yeah, I'm fine. Good night." I watched her head back into her room and shut the door. The moment it clicked, my face burned with an unfamiliar mix of hurt, anger, and heartbreak. Clara was fully aware. A swirl of questions knocked around in my brain. How could my own child be fine with her mother sneaking around? Why wasn't she worried about how I'd feel? I dragged myself into the living room and sank onto the couch. At that point, I understood that Sophia must have spun some narrative to Clara that I was too old, too unexciting, that it was normal for a woman to seek more. Clara, being a teenager, must have believed her. My chest felt tight. I stared at our family photos on the mantle, the three of us at Disneyland when Clara was 10, us at her sweet 16 party, all smiles. Now those pictures felt like cruel jokes, illusions of a happy family. The next day, I tried to observe them together, see if there was a noticeable dynamic. Over breakfast, Clara casually mentioned staying at a friend's place after school for a study group. Sophia nodded, offering to drive her. The way they avoided looking at me spoke volumes. They had inside knowledge I wasn't supposed to share. Before leaving for work, I asked Sophia in a calm tone, "Anything you want to tell me about your plans for next week or so?" I watched her reaction closely. She stiffened slightly, glancing at Clara, then turned back to me. "Just normal stuff. Work's busy." "Why?" I shrugged. "No reason," I lied. She let out a brief laugh, like she thought I was testing her. Then she mumbled about not wanting to be late and hustled Clara out the door. As soon as they were gone, I clenched my fists. My wife and daughter, united in deception, had the audacity to laugh me off. That evening, I was in my home office, scanning a blueprint, when Clara's voice floated in from the hallway. She was on the phone again, presumably with a friend. I heard something about a flight schedule, something about, "Make sure Dad's not around," and my stomach churned. If I confronted her, she'd just deny it or run to Sophia. So I decided to keep my head down and gather facts. If they thought I was clueless, maybe I could use that to my advantage. Around 9, I stepped out for a break and overheard them in the kitchen, giggling in hushed voices. Then came a mention of Marcus. My blood ran cold. I'd never known them to be so open about another man in our house. Part of me wanted to burst in and demand an explanation, but a new, darker part of me told me to wait, learn more, let them tie the rope of their own secrets. I recalled a conversation with Tom Bishop, who once told me how, during his divorce, he'd discovered incriminating texts on his ex-wife's phone by quietly syncing it to a backup app. The memory sparked an idea. The thought made me uneasy. Invading someone's privacy was never my style. But given how far this had gone, I felt I had no choice. I was apparently the last to know. Everyone else, Sophia, Clara, even that scumbag teacher, was in the loop about what was happening. So if I had to break a few personal rules to protect myself, I would. That night, after both of them had gone to bed, I crept downstairs to the kitchen where Sophia often left her phone charging. Sure enough, it was there, but the screen was locked. I tested an old passcode. I knew her birthday. It didn't work. My heart hammered. She must have changed it recently. I replaced the phone as quietly as I could and returned to my room, frustration coiling inside me like a snake. I could attempt Clara's phone, but that felt even worse. She was my daughter. Then again, she was also a co-conspirator. Torn, I decided to hold off for now, not wanting to do something rash. The next day, instead of driving straight home after work, I sat in my car in the office parking lot, phone in hand. I dialed a private investigator's number that Tom had once recommended. He answered in a curt, professional manner. I introduced myself and after a moment's hesitation explained I suspected my wife of an affair. My voice shook slightly when I said it out loud. He asked for some details, names, the time frame, and if there was a secondary person of interest. I told him about Marcus, about the rumors of a Hawaii trip. He told me it would be easier if I had flight schedules, but if not, he'd manage. I set an appointment for the next day. My entire body felt tense as I hung up. It felt surreal to be hiring someone to investigate my wife. But then I remembered Sophia's smug expression, her ultimatum, and Clara's casual involvement. For the first time in my life, I wanted payback. The old Andrew, the one who always tried to rationalize and compromise, was overshadowed by a colder, more focused version of myself. That night, ironically, Sophia seemed to sense something was up. She asked me if I was okay, like she actually cared. "You've been quiet," she said, placing a gentle hand on my shoulder as we passed in the hallway. I met her gaze, my face a careful mask. "Just work stress," I lied. "Deadlines. You know how it goes." She nodded, almost sympathetically, but behind her eyes I still saw the flicker of confidence, the woman who thought she had me cornered. "Well, let me know if you need any help unwinding," she said. Like nothing had happened, like our conversation in the kitchen a few days back was just water under the bridge. Inside, I seethed. Unwinding? She wanted me to pretend life was normal while she planned a romantic getaway with a man who taught my daughter's history class. I forced a tight smile. "Sure," I murmured. "I'll let you know." Later in bed, I stared at the ceiling again. My mind replayed Clara's phone call, her casual dismissal of me, her excitement about the trip. I was so proud of her, I thought bitterly, and now she's part of this lie. Memories of teaching her how to ride a bike, of cheering at her soccer games, flooded my head. She used to call me her hero. Now she mocked me. That sense of betrayal cut deeper than anything Sophia had done. Eventually, I dozed off, but not before making myself a promise. I would not be the victim in this twisted scenario. If they wanted to treat me like a clueless bystander, I'd let them just long enough to gather my evidence, line up my strategy, and deliver the wake-up call they deserved. In the days that followed, I tried to maintain the act. I pretended I was too distracted by work to notice Sophia's tension or Clara's secrecy. Meanwhile, I met the private investigator, a wiry man named Ronald Page. He asked for a recent photo of Sophia and any details I had about Marcus Harrington. We discussed the possibility that they'd be traveling under different surnames to avoid detection. Ronald said he'd find out soon enough. I left his office feeling both anxious and grimly determined. That weekend arrived faster than I expected. On Saturday morning, I was out in the driveway checking the tire pressure on my car when a taxi pulled up in front of our house. My heart started hammering because I knew exactly why it was there. Sure enough, Sophia stepped out of the front door, a suitcase in each hand, wearing casual travel attire, a loose floral top, jeans, and sandals. Clara stood by the door, half smiling. Neither of them looked at me. Sophia handed the suitcases to the taxi driver, then turned toward me. Andrew, she called, raising a hand in a strange wave. I'm heading out. I'll be back Saturday night. I pretended to rummage in the trunk. Yep, I said without emotion. She took a breath, like she was considering whether to say more. Then she just shrugged, brushed a strand of hair from her face, and went for the taxi. Clara watched me from the doorway, her expression unreadable. I slammed the trunk shut and headed inside. I didn't feel like subjecting myself to more of their half-truths. 10 minutes later, I heard the taxi drive away. In that moment, I realized I'd hit a crossroads. She was gone. She genuinely believed I'd just stay put, clueless, while she frolicked in Hawaii with her lover. That notion lit a spark of indignation inside me. No, this is not how it ends, I thought. Clara walked into the living room, fiddling with her phone. Dad, she said quietly, I'm heading out too. Gonna meet Leslie at the mall. I gave a short nod. Sure, I muttered. The tension was thick enough to slice with a knife. She hovered like she wanted to say something else, but then left, letting the front door click shut behind her. Once I was alone, I didn't waste time. I rushed upstairs to the master bedroom and began grabbing clothes, personal documents, anything I might need. I'd spent the past couple weeks searching for apartments, found one that was available on short notice. I wasn't proud of sneaking away, but I refused to wait around as a victim. If Sophia wanted to come back to the same old routine, she was in for a rude awakening. I packed methodically, focusing on essentials first. Enough clothes for a few weeks, my laptop, important papers like the house deed copies, birth certificates, account statements. The sense of betrayal sharpened my focus. I wasn't crying or shaking. I felt eerily calm, like a man performing a critical operation. Next, I took pictures of some of the valuables, furniture, electronics, so I'd have a record of them later if we ended up in a legal battle. The entire process felt surreal, but it also felt right. An hour later, I had several boxes stacked in the hallway. I didn't want Clara to see me lugging them out, so I decided to wait until she'd be gone long enough. By the time she was at the mall, I was fairly certain she wouldn't return soon. I called a buddy with a pickup truck, Mark, who lived across town. I gave him a quick, vague explanation. Need a favor, moving out, complicated situation. Mark, bless him, didn't pry. He just said he'd be over in 30 minutes. While waiting, I found a pen and paper and sat at the kitchen table, scribbling a note. Sophia, I wrote, I know you expect me to be here when you return, but I can't. I've asked you to reconsider this trip, this relationship, and you haven't, so I'm leaving. I don't want to be the fool you keep in the dark. If you come back and want to talk, we can discuss a legal separation or divorce. I paused, trying to keep the anger out of the text. I never thought you'd do this to me. To us. I loved you for 20 years, but I can't accept what you've chosen. I signed it simply, Andrew, and left it on the counter. Mark arrived in good time, and we loaded his pickup with my boxes and suitcases. He asked once, You sure about this, man? I nodded. Yeah, I replied. No emotion in my voice. I have to go. He looked concerned, but didn't push further. I was grateful for his discretion. We made 2 trips, driving my belongings to the small apartment I'd secured just a few towns over. I had to keep the address secret. Last thing I wanted was an unexpected confrontation. The apartment manager, a young woman with a bored expression, handed me the keys. I remember how normal the transaction felt, despite the turmoil swirling in my chest. As Mark carried in the final box, he gave me a half-smile. You'll be all right, buddy, he said. Shout if you need anything. Alone in the new space, I slumped onto the bare mattress. The apartment was furnished enough a couch, a bed, some kitchen supplies, but it lacked any hint of home. I stared at the plain, white walls. My mind spun with the final image of Sophia heading off to the airport. A part of me still couldn't believe it was real. Sometime around sunset, my phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen. It was Clara. I hesitated, then let it go to voicemail. After a few seconds, I listened to the message. Dad, I got home and you're gone. There's a note for Mom, but not for me. Are you serious right now? This is insane. Mom told me she was going on a trip for volunteer stuff and you're just leaving? Call me back. Please. Her voice shook. I pressed delete. Couldn't handle that right now. She knew the truth, and if she wanted to pretend otherwise, that was on her. Let her see how it feels to be in the dark. The next ring was from Sophia's phone. I didn't pick up. She tried twice, left one voicemail. "Andrew, if you're listening, we need to talk about this. I'm not even sure what to say. You can't just vanish. Call me back." She sounded more surprised than remorseful. I deleted that message too. I scrolled my contacts, found my brother David's name, and called him. If anyone could help me keep things quiet, it was him. He answered on the second ring, voice warm but concerned. I gave him the basics, that Sophia had left with another man, that I'd moved to an apartment. David, who'd always been protective, offered to help keep my location confidential. He even suggested that if I needed a formal address for mail to avoid letting Sophia track me, I could use his place. We made arrangements to talk more in person soon. When the calls finally stopped, I found myself in the dark, quiet apartment with only my swirling thoughts for company. Was this the right move? In some ways, it felt like I was giving up my entire life. But then I remembered Sophia's smirk, her brazen words, and Clara's conspiratorial phone calls. They weren't leaving me much of a choice. Hunger nudged me around 9. I realized I hadn't eaten since breakfast. I ventured out to a nearby diner. The waitress served me a burger and fries, and I ate in a daze, ignoring the local news flickering on the TV overhead. My mind replayed the day in slow motion. I pictured the empty house, the moment Sophia returned to find me gone. Let her be confused. Let her wonder if maybe I was filing for divorce or planning my next move. I wanted her to feel that hollow space. Late that night, back at the apartment, I stood by the small window that overlooked a parking lot. Streetlights cast orange pools of light, and a few cars were scattered around. My phone sat silent on the table. I could almost sense Clara's or Sophia's frustration at not getting a response. A pang of guilt twisted in my gut. This was my daughter, after all. But I quashed it, reminding myself she'd been an accomplice. She made a choice, same as her mother. I flicked off the lights, stepping into the bedroom. Collapsing onto the bed, a wave of exhaustion washed over me. My last thought before falling into a dreamless sleep was that I wasn't powerless anymore. For the first time in weeks, I felt a spark of control over my own life. Yes, the damage was massive, and the future was uncertain, but I was done being the clueless husband. If Sophia thought she could keep me in the dark while she played around with Marcus Harrington in paradise, she was about to discover how wrong she'd been. The first morning in my new apartment felt surreal. A dull gray light seeped through the narrow window, illuminating the bare walls and half-unpacked boxes around me. I'd woken up on a lumpy mattress the leasing office provided, my neck stiff from stress and unfamiliar surroundings. For the past 20 years, I'd opened my eyes in the same bedroom, with the same wife next to me. Now I was alone, physically and emotionally. As I blinked against the daylight, I reminded myself, this is necessary. I can't let them keep me in the dark. I spent the next hour shuffling around, trying to locate my coffee maker among the boxes piled in the corner. Each box was labeled with a thick black marker, kitchen, bedroom, misc. But I'd packed everything in such a rush that I couldn't recall where I stashed half my stuff. Eventually, I found the coffee maker behind a stack of sweatshirts. There was something comforting about the smell of brewing coffee filling a cramped kitchen like a small reminder of normalcy. I took a sip and gazed at the scuffed linoleum floor, letting the warmth seep through me. The adrenaline that had carried me out of my old house was fading, replaced by a steady ache in my chest. I didn't want to dwell on the past. I had tasks to do, steps to secure my future. First on my list was meeting with an attorney. I needed someone experienced in handling messy divorces, especially those involving adultery. I'd never planned for a day when I'd have to weaponize legal documents against my wife, but here I was. At around 9, I called a law firm recommended by a colleague, Tom Bishop. He'd gone through his own nasty divorce years back. The receptionist sounded brisk but polite, and after I dropped Tom's name, she scheduled me for a same-day consultation with Linda Johnson, one of their senior attorneys. Her calendar had an opening at 2 p.m. hanging up. I jotted the address in my phone, a mid-rise building downtown. I took a long breath, trying to quell the flutter in my stomach. Hiring a lawyer made everything feel more concrete, as if there'd be no turning back. Maybe that was the point. Before heading out, I grabbed my laptop and double-checked the minimal evidence I already had. a folder with scattered notes, times, and locations of Sophia's suspicious outings. I also had a few vague references to Marcus Harrington's name. It wasn't much, but hopefully enough for Linda Johnson to see the big picture. By noon, I was dressed in my usual shirt and slacks, though I felt more like an imposter in them, like I was a detective on a secret mission, not an engineer on a lunch break. Driving through the suburban streets, I felt a stab of nostalgia every time I passed a familiar spot. The pizzeria where Clara used to beg for pepperoni slices after soccer games, the mall where Sophia and I bought our first dining set. Each memory threatened to knock me off balance, but I held it together by focusing on the objective: protect myself, expose Sophia's betrayal. Parking in front of the law firm downtown, I noticed a row of meter spots, all nearly full. I circled the block twice before I found an empty space. The city noises hummed, car engines, a distant siren, footsteps on concrete. For a moment I just stood on the sidewalk, heart pounding, repeating to myself that I had a right to do this. Inside the building's lobby, the elevator smelled faintly of someone's cologne. On the 7th floor, a brass sign read, Laurel and Wilcox, LLP. Stepping in, I caught sight of plush couches, potted plants, and a receptionist with a headset perched neatly over her blonde hair. "Good afternoon," she said. "Welcome to Laurel and Wilcox. May I help you?" "I have an appointment with Linda Johnson," I managed, voice tight. She offered a practiced smile. "Right this way, Mr. Carter." Linda Johnson's office was lined with dark wooden shelves crammed full of legal textbooks and binders. She rose from behind a wide mahogany desk, greeted me with a firm handshake, and gestured to a leather chair. She looked to be in her late 40s, wearing a navy blue blazer, sharp eyes behind reading glasses. "Please, sit," she said in a tone that managed to be both friendly and no-nonsense. Once I settled, she folded her hands on the desk. "I understand you're looking into filing for divorce?" I swallowed. "Yes. My wife's seeing someone else," I said, forcing the words out. "She threatened to make it ugly if I didn't just accept her affair. And now I've left the house." Linda nodded, sympathy flickering across her face. "I see. Do you have any proof of the affair?" "Not yet," I admitted. "But I have phone logs, suspicious text messages, dates, times she disappeared. I recently hired a private investigator to track her trip with this man to Hawaii." "Smart move," Linda said. "If they're out of state, it might be easier to gather photographic or documented proof. Adultery can influence settlements, especially if we can prove marital misconduct. But every state has its quirks." The conversation flowed. She outlined what I should document: any questionable expenses on our joint cards, the timeline of her betrayal, and my attempts to address it. We talked about child support for Clara, who was still living at home, though she'd be an adult soon, in college. Linda explained potential approaches to property division and spousal support, then asked if I was safe at my new location. "It's a secret. She doesn't know where I'm staying," I told her. "Clara doesn't either." Linda offered a small nod. "That can be helpful. Sometimes distance keeps tensions down. But be prepared she'll try to contact you once she realizes you're not caving. We want to stay on top of communication." An hour later, I left the firm clutching a folder of documents and a checklist of what to gather. My stomach churned with a mixture of relief and dread. At least I had a plan. Linda made me feel I wasn't alone in this. Next, I drove to a nondescript strip mall on the edge of town, where the private investigator Ronald Page kept an office in a one-story suite. A small sign reading Page Investigations hung above the door. Ronald was a wiry man in his 50s, with salt and pepper hair and a faint Chicago accent. We'd spoken briefly on the phone earlier, but this was my first time meeting him face to face. "Come on in, Andrew," Ronald said, extending a handshake. His office was sparsely decorated: a desk, a file cabinet, a couple of faded photographs of him out fishing. On the wall, a clock ticked steadily, the only sound aside from our voices. "I'm finalizing the plan for Hawaii," he added, tapping on a tablet. "They're leaving soon, correct?" I nodded. "Yes. She left the house a few days ago to join him. I'm not sure of the exact itinerary, but I know they planned a full week." Ronald gave a small, tight-lipped smile. "That's enough. We can use flight manifests and hotel logs to pinpoint them. Sometimes I send an associate to snap pictures, but with remote destinations, we rely on local contacts or public info. We'll get what we need. The notion of strangers tailing Sophia felt both unsettling and satisfying. All right, keep me posted, I said. I want as much evidence as possible, photos, receipts, anything tying them together. Ronald jotted notes. Understood. It may cost a bit, but if your lawyer says it helps your case, it's worth every penny. Leaving his office, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. Only a few days ago, I'd been on the edge of despair, forced out of my own home. Now, though the pain still weighed on me, I had a path forward like an engineer tackling a tough design problem, step by step. That evening, after grabbing a quick sandwich from a local deli near my apartment, I sat at my small dining table and carefully sorted the paperwork Linda gave me. The overhead light buzzed faintly, and outside my window I could see the silhouettes of other tenants moving about their routines. The normalcy of it all contrasted sharply with the storm raging in my personal life. I made a neat list. Gather bank statements, check credit card charges, confirm timeline. I also noted, pull phone records. Sometimes you could request extended phone logs from providers, which might show calls and texts to Marcus's number. The next item, stay secret, underlined twice. I didn't want Sophia or Clara knocking on my door with pleas or accusations. I wanted them to realize the gravity of betraying me. So far, I'd only had a couple of missed calls from Clara, along with a few texts from unknown numbers that I assumed might be Sophia or her friends. I deleted them without reading. A pang of guilt made my chest feel tight. Clara was still my daughter. I wondered if ignoring her attempts to reach me was too cruel. Yet every time I pictured her gleefully helping Sophia plan the getaway, I reminded myself that trust was broken in more ways than one. I needed time to process. When I finally fell into bed, the events of the day whirled through my mind. I had an apartment, a lawyer, a PI, a trifecta of steps to protect myself. As uncomfortable as it was, a part of me felt empowered, no more burying my head in the sand. I turned off the bedside lamp, darkness filling the small room. Beyond the hum of the fridge in the kitchen, everything was silent. I let out a long breath. The old Andrew Carter, the naive one who believed blind trust was enough, had to be put aside. In his place was someone more guarded and determined, someone who'd fight back with every tool at his disposal. Despite the roiling thoughts, exhaustion finally won. Before sleep took me, I thought of the stark emptiness on the other side of the bed, a reminder that what used to be my life had shattered. Part of me wanted to cling to the love I once had, but the reality was that I'd been deceived for a year. There was no quick fix, no gentle solution. The steps I was taking were just the beginning, and I wasn't certain how far I'd have to go. I woke up the next morning feeling a strange mix of determination and grief. It was like I'd resolved to handle things logically, yet under that cool plan lay a mess of raw emotions. My phone beeped with a new voicemail, likely from my brother David or maybe Linda's office. I hoped it wasn't Sophia or Clara. I steeled myself and listened. Hey Andrew, it's David. Call me back when you get a chance. I've got some news, and also Mom was asking about you. David's voice paused. Take your time, bro. I exhaled. My mother was probably calling him, wondering why she hadn't heard from me in days. I'd have to handle that soon, but not right now. I needed coffee first, something to anchor myself before dealing with family questions. The kitchen was a small, rectangular space with chipped countertops. I popped a pod into the single-serve coffee maker I'd hastily bought on sale. As it gurgled, I thought back to all the times Sophia and I shared morning coffee in our old kitchen, teasing each other about chores or planning the day. That version of us is gone, I reminded myself, gripping the edge of the counter. The coffee tasted slightly bitter. I sipped slowly, letting the warmth offer some comfort. Then I texted David a brief note. Alive and well. We'll call later. I couldn't face a long conversation just yet. I spent the morning combing through old financial records, cross-referencing them with the timeline Linda suggested. The deeper I dug, the more suspicious charges I found: random dinners at upscale restaurants when I was supposedly out of town for work, odd travel expenses that didn't align with any of Sophia's business trips. Each new clue stoked an undercurrent of anger. She was so brazen, I thought, scanning a receipt from a fancy seafood place we'd never visited together. Around noon, I felt restless. I figured a walk might clear my head. The apartment complex had a modest outdoor pool, a handful of lounge chairs, and a low wrought iron fence. It's barely spring. The water's probably freezing, I mused, stepping outside. I was about to walk past the pool area entirely, but something made me pause when I heard a female voice call out, "Hey there!" I turned to see a woman in a teal tank top standing by the gate, a towel draped over her shoulder. She looked to be in her mid-30s, with wavy brown hair and a friendly smile. "Hi," I managed, a little startled. She opened the gate. "You new here? I think I saw you moving boxes the other day." "Yeah, pretty new," I said, clearing my throat. "Name's Andrew." She shifted the towel to her other arm and held out a hand. "Natalie Gray. I live in Building C with my daughter, Emma." I shook her hand, noticing she had a warm, natural ease about her. "Good to meet you," I said, trying not to sound awkward. Natalie tilted her head. "I was about to see if the water's at all tolerable, but I think I'm just sunbathing today. You mind some company?" Admittedly, I felt a jolt of hesitation. I wasn't exactly in the best emotional place to be chatting with strangers, but something about her open expression calmed me. Maybe it'd be good to talk to someone who didn't know my entire situation. "Sure," I said. We wandered into the pool area. A faint chlorine smell lingered in the air, and the water surface rippled in the breeze. Natalie tossed her towel on a lounge chair, then gestured for me to take the adjacent seat. I settled in, still feeling out of place. Her phone chimed, and she glanced at it briefly, then put it face down. "So, Andrew, how do you like the complex so far? It's not exactly a 5-star resort, but the neighbors tend to be nice." I forced a small smile. "It's quiet. That's what I need right now." She studied my face. "Rough time?" Her directness caught me off guard. Yeah, some personal stuff." Natalie nodded sympathetically. "I get it. My ex-husband and I went through some major drama a few years ago. Sometimes you just need a place to start over." Hearing that, I felt an unexpected sense of camaraderie. "That's kind of where I'm at," I admitted, choosing my words carefully. "Long marriage, ended badly, and I'm regrouping." Her eyes flickered with understanding. "I'm sorry. Divorce can be brutal, especially if there's heartbreak involved. But trust me, it does get easier." I studied her expression. She wasn't pitying me. It felt more like genuine empathy. "I appreciate that," I said quietly. A hush fell between us, the kind that felt oddly comfortable. The distant sound of traffic provided background noise. Eventually, Natalie exhaled, gesturing to the pool water. "Well, I'll take the plunge for a second." She dipped a foot in, yelped at the temperature, then laughed. "Nope, definitely too cold for me." She retreated to the lounge chair, and I couldn't help but smile at her light-heartedness. In that moment, I felt a weight inside me shift slightly. For the first time since I'd left my house, I felt a faint flicker of relief, like maybe not everything in my life was doomed. There were still people out there who were kind, who wouldn't betray me. We talked a bit more casually. She mentioned Emma was 8, finishing 2nd grade, and that her sister lived across town. I kept my story vague, mentioning I was an engineer and had complications at home. She didn't pry, respecting whatever boundaries I set. When I finally got up to leave, she smiled. "Hey, Andrew? If you ever need someone to just chat with, we're in 3C. Don't be a stranger." Walking away, I felt a strange mixture of gratitude and caution. I wasn't ready to trust anyone, but it was nice to know I wasn't alone in the universe. That evening, back in my apartment, I sorted through more paperwork. The adrenaline from my conversation with Natalie had faded, and the old ache returned. I found myself flipping through pictures, some from the past year, where Sophia and I posed at a neighbor's barbecue. Even then, it was clear in hindsight her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. A memory flashed, me asking her that night if she was okay, and Sophia brushing it off. "Just tired," she'd said. Now I knew better. She was probably texting Marcus. Gritting my teeth, I put the photos away. Dwelling on them wouldn't help. My phone rang, and this time it was Linda Johnson. "Andrew, I just received your emailed documents," she said. "Good job gathering them. We can definitely use these dinner receipts and hotel charges that don't match her known work trips. Keep going, every piece helps build the story. Thanks, Linda, I said. My voice sounded steadier than I felt. What's next? I'll draft an official letter to Sophia about potential divorce proceedings. We don't have to send it yet, but I want to be ready. Also, let me know if the PI finds anything concrete in Hawaii. Photos are key. All right, I replied. I'll keep you updated. I hung up, exhaling. My vision blurred for a second as I realized how bizarre it was. Me, planning an arsenal of evidence against my wife, but that was the path I'd been forced onto. Late that night, I crawled into bed, the overhead light off, the darkness pressing in. My phone glowed softly on the nightstand. Still no new messages from Clara. I had no idea how she was doing, if she was back home alone or with Sophia's relatives. Despite the emotional heaviness, my mind replayed the short conversation with Natalie by the pool. There was something about her warmth that felt safe. It reminded me not everyone in this world was out to manipulate or hurt me. Tucking the sheets around me, I closed my eyes and tried to imagine a future where I wasn't tangled up in anger and heartbreak. A quiet place, maybe, where I could breathe without the suffocating tension that had ruled my life for months. The image felt distant, like a dream. Still, the faint optimism lingered a small flame in the darkness. I spent the next few days immersed in collecting whatever documentation I could, and that monotony almost became a coping mechanism. Each morning, I'd call Linda's paralegal to confirm which bank statements they needed. Then I'd trade emails with Ronald Page, the investigator, about any updates from Hawaii. The more I focused on the small tasks, the less I thought about the bigger heartbreak. But that heartbreak was always there, just below the surface. Occasionally, I'd catch my reflection in the bathroom mirror and see the shadows under my eyes or the tension in my jaw. People at my office, where I was still trying to maintain some sense of normalcy, commented that I looked tired. I brushed it off, blaming tight deadlines and stuff at home. I couldn't exactly explain the real reason. One afternoon, as I was fine-tuning a blueprint on my computer, I got a text from Ronald. Got pictures. You'll want to see these. My stomach flipped. I emailed him back quickly, telling him to forward everything to my secure folder. By the time I closed my laptop for the day, I was both dreading and eager to see the evidence. I grabbed takeout from a Chinese place near the office orange chicken, which I barely tasted because my mind was so preoccupied. Then I hurried home to my apartment and opened my secure folder on my laptop. A series of digital photos greeted me, each time stamped. The first showed Sophia, hair pinned up, wearing a floral sundress. She was standing near a beachside bar, her face turned toward a man. The next several photos showed them together Marcus Harrington, presumably an athletic-looking guy, maybe mid-30s, with a cocky grin. In a few shots, they were holding hands, looking out at the ocean. Another showed them kissing openly by a pool, lounge chairs in the background. My hands trembled on the keyboard. Seeing it documented, no shadow of doubt stung in a way I hadn't quite anticipated. Yes, I already knew. But actually looking at her in another man's arms turned my stomach. I clicked through each photo methodically, saving them into a separate file. They'd be valuable for Linda's case. A short typed report accompanied the images, detailing how they'd checked into a resort under their real names, unafraid of being recognized. They attended some luau event. Ronald's local contact had approached discreetly. The final line read, "Likely more content to come as they remain on the island." I shut my laptop, pushing it away. The walls of the apartment felt too close. My heart hammered. It was as if I could hear them laughing, mocking me for being a step behind. I reminded myself that this was part of the plan. Gather evidence, prove the adultery, but damn if it didn't hurt to see. Later that evening, I decided to distract myself by calling my brother David. We hadn't spoken at length since I'd left my house. The phone rang a few times before he picked up, and I could hear the noise of a TV in the background. "Andrew," he said, sounding relieved. "Finally." "Sorry," I murmured. "Been busy." He muted the TV. "I get it. How you holding up?" I hesitated. "Not great, but I'm managing." A small laugh escaped my throat, humorless. "Got a bunch of photos today. Proof that Sophia's with her lover. It's real, David. She's not even hiding it." He sighed. "I'm sorry, man. That's rough." For a minute, neither of us spoke. Then David asked, "Need anything? Money, maybe? Or a place to crash beyond the apartment? Marissa and I can help." I closed my eyes. "I appreciate it, but I'm set. The apartment is fine for now. Just keep my address secret. I know she's going to try to track me once she's back." David promised he'd keep quiet. I pictured him sitting in his living room, probably wishing he could do more. Even though we'd always been close, I wasn't great at asking for help. "Thanks," I said. "How's Mom?" He let out a dry chuckle. "She's worried. I told her you're sorting things out. She wanted to call you, but I told her to wait." A pang of guilt. "Tell her I'm okay, just dealing with personal stuff. She'll understand, I guess." We chatted briefly about mundane topics, the upcoming family reunion, David's job as a loan officer. The normalcy felt jarring, but also comforting. After we hung up, I realized how badly I needed allies, even if it was just emotional support. The next day, a Saturday, I braved the grocery store, pushing a half-empty cart down the aisles. My mind drifted to how Sophia and I used to shop together. She'd fuss about the produce, and I'd handle the cereal aisle. Now I was grabbing random items, not entirely sure what a single man should stock. I was checking out when my phone vibrated. I glanced down, an incoming call from an unknown number. Usually I might ignore it, but something told me to answer. "Hello? Andrew?" a hesitant voice said, a flicker of recognition. "Marissa?" I asked, naming my sister-in-law. She sighed in relief. "Yes, sorry for calling from my work phone. David stepped out and I got a message from some woman, Sophia's friend, I think, asking about your location. I said I had no clue." My chest tightened. "That's interesting. She's probably fishing for info. Thanks for letting me know, Marissa." "No problem. Listen, if Sophia calls me directly, I'll keep quiet. But are you sure you don't want to talk to her?" I pressed my lips together. "Not right now. She made her choice. I have to stay clear while everything's in motion." Marissa offered a sympathetic hum. "Okay, just be careful." She sounded pretty persistent. I thanked her again and hung up, placing my groceries in the trunk. The reality of what I was doing, hiding from my own wife, hit me like a wave of nausea. But I reminded myself this was all part of the plan. That afternoon, after unpacking the groceries, I found a note slipped under my door. My pulse quickened. Was it from Sophia or Clara? But when I picked it up, I recognized the neat handwriting. "Andrew, this is Natalie from 3C. We're grilling in the courtyard around 5 if you'd like to join. No pressure, just a friendly invite." For a moment, I debated ignoring it. My life was complicated enough, and I didn't want to drag anyone else into my mess, but a voice in my head nudged me to accept. Maybe a friendly face would do me good. Come 5 p.m. I headed to the courtyard, spotting a modest grill set up near a small patch of grass. Natalie was flipping burgers while a younger girl, Emma, chased a bubble machine. Another neighbor, a middle-aged man named Terrence, was sipping a soda on a lawn chair. Natalie waved me over. "Hey, you came!" I gave a small, genuine smile. Couldn't resist the smell of burgers. Emma bounded over, big brown eyes looking me up and down. "Hi, I'm Emma." "Hey, Emma, I'm Andrew," I said softly. She flashed a gap-toothed grin, then ran off after another bubble. Natalie handed me a soda from a cooler. "So, any dietary restrictions?" "Burgers are plain, but I can do a veggie patty." "Burgers perfect," I replied. We made small talk favorite places to eat around town, how the rent in the complex was too high but still better than some places, Emma's excitement about a school field trip. I felt the tension in my shoulders loosen. It was a simple cookout, the kind of normal activity I hadn't experienced in a while. At one point, Terrence wandered inside, leaving me alone at the grill with Natalie. She shot me a kind look. "Your eyes seem sad," she said gently. "Hard day?" I hesitated, then shrugged. "Just dealing with personal issues. Divorce stuff." She nodded, sliding a burger onto a paper plate. "I won't pry, but if you ever need to vent, I'm a good listener." There was a sincerity in her gaze that made me want to spill everything. But I bit my tongue, not wanting to weigh her down with my revenge plot. Instead, I said, "Thank you. It's been rough, but I'm sorting it out." When the burgers were done, Emma came darting back, squealing happily about how many bubbles she'd popped. I couldn't help but grin at her enthusiasm. As we ate, the conversation stayed light. The upcoming holiday, A funny story about Terrence's cat. For just an hour, I let myself feel like a normal guy at a casual barbecue, not a jilted husband building a legal case. Later that night, I checked my email. Another update from Ronald. They're still in Hawaii, no sign of returning early. More photographs attached. I didn't open the attachment, no need to see more of the same. I forwarded it to Linda's email with a note. Use as needed. Before bed, I got a text from David. You holding up? I typed back, yes. PI got more evidence. Attorney is working on it. Then I paused, adding, thanks for the support. His quick reply made me smile faintly. Anytime. Stay strong. Climbing under the covers, I marveled at how drastically my life had changed in just a short time. I was forging alliances with attorneys and private investigators while forging new acquaintances with a neighbor who had no idea the emotional storm I was carrying. In some ways, it felt good to keep that side of me separate. Yet in other moments, the loneliness weighed heavily on my chest. At least I kept telling myself, I had the upper hand now. Sophia had no clue how prepared I was becoming. If she truly believed I'd just vanish quietly, she would soon discover how wrong she was. A few days later, I received a phone call I'd been half expecting. Ronald's voice, sounding more animated than usual. Andrew, I got an interesting tidbit, he said. Seems our guy Harrington is a teacher at Redwood High, yeah? Yes, I replied, already aware, but curious what Ronald had found. Well, I poked around. The local school board has a pretty strict morality clause for its employees. Something about staff conduct, especially if it involves a student or a parent. They don't like public scandals, that's for sure. My pulse quickened. So if they find out he's sleeping with a married parent? Ronald chuckled dryly. Might put him under serious scrutiny, maybe cost him his job. That's if we provide them with the right evidence. I'm not a lawyer, but it's worth exploring. I thanked him and hung up, my mind whirling. Part of me felt uneasy about targeting Marcus's career. But then I remembered how brazenly he'd inserted himself into my family, crossing boundaries not just as a man, but as my daughter's teacher. Rage flared in my chest, fueling the desire to see him held accountable. I knew from Linda's counsel that the adultery alone might not guarantee me everything in a divorce settlement, but if I could demonstrate that Marcus had violated professional ethics, it would definitely apply pressure, especially on Sophia, who might not relish the publicity. That afternoon, I arranged a phone meeting with Linda. She sounded intrigued. Andrew, a complaint to the school board could be a strong move. However, be careful. If it looks vindictive, it might backfire. We need to frame it as concern, a teacher demonstrating unethical behavior around students' families, possibly harming Clara's well-being. I recalled how Clara once praised Marcus for his coolness, how easily he bonded with kids. Now that same teacher was in a romantic fling with my wife on a sandy beach. The hypocrisy nauseated me. Understood, I said. So how do we do this discreetly? Gather the evidence you have photos of him and Sophia, proof that he's her child's teacher. Then we approach the board or the principal with a formal letter. We can do it anonymously, or I can handle it through a legal channel. The board will investigate, and hopefully, it sends a message. A grim sense of satisfaction coiled in my gut. I realized I was stepping further into the role of an avenger, someone I never thought I'd become. Let's do it, I said, voice unwavering. Linda agreed to draft the complaint. We hung up, and for a moment I stared at my phone, numb. This was the final step in a plan I never imagined writing, turning them in, watching them burn. The old Andrew might have hesitated, but the old Andrew had been betrayed in the worst way. Over the next 2 days, Linda and I compiled a set of images from Ronald, focusing on those that clearly showed Marcus Harrington's face next to Sophia, hugging or kissing. We attached copies of Redwood High's staff directory listing Harrington as a faculty member, as well as a statement about the negative impact on a student's household. The language was measured but pointed, citing concerns about professional boundaries. Early Wednesday morning, Linda submitted the complaint. I felt a jolt of adrenaline, half expecting immediate fallout. Instead, the day passed quietly. I tried to focus on my engineering tasks at work. My phone stayed silent, aside from the occasional text from David or Linda confirming small details. Then, late in the evening, I got a call from a Redwood High district official. My heart thudded. The official's voice was steady, though tinged with caution. "We received materials alleging misconduct by Mr. Harrington. We're initiating an inquiry," she said. "We have your contact info if we need further clarification." I acknowledged that I was concerned about a teacher's relationship with a married parent, specifically my wife. The official politely said they'd reach out if more details were required. After we hung up, I let out a slow breath, bracing for the storm. The next day, Ronald forwarded me a short message. "They know something's up. Harrington's phone calls have spiked. People are whispering." That was enough to confirm the wheels were turning. Marcus was likely aware the school board had opened a file on him. I imagined him pacing his hotel room in Hawaii, frantically calling colleagues to see who reported him. Meanwhile, Sophia would wonder if it was me behind it. Maybe she'd realize at last that I wasn't going to just roll over. Despite the small victory, I felt uneasy that Friday afternoon. Sitting at my work desk, I found it hard to concentrate on a blueprint. My coworker, Tom, leaned over the partition, brows furrowed. "You okay, Andrew? You've been staring at that same screen for half an hour." "Yeah," I said quietly. "Just a lot on my mind." He nodded, not pushing further, but I could see the sympathy in his eyes. Tom knew the broad strokes, that I was separated and dealing with a messy situation. If only he knew how deep the revenge plan ran. By day's end, I decided to blow off steam by heading to the apartment complex's small gym. It was a cramped space with a few treadmills, a couple of stationary bikes, and a mirrored wall. Usually, I wasn't a big workout guy, but tonight I needed to burn off the tension. I changed into sweatpants and started jogging on a treadmill, letting the rhythmic thud of my feet drown out my swirling thoughts. After 15 minutes, my breath came in sharp gasps, and sweat dripped down my temple. The physical exertion felt good, a raw reminder that I was still alive, capable of pushing forward. I paused to catch my breath, leaning against the machine, and spotted Natalie walking in. She had her hair tied up, wearing leggings and a lightweight hoodie. She offered a friendly smile, eyebrows lifting in surprise. "Andrew, didn't know you used the gym?" "Me neither," I joked between breaths. "I'm just trying something new, I guess." She nodded, stepping onto a bike. "Good for you. Exercise helps me clear my head." "Yeah, clearing my head is exactly what I need," I said, feeling oddly exposed. We made small talk as she cycled slowly. I mentioned I'd had a tough week at work, omitting the real drama. She talked about Emma's upcoming dance recital, how her sister planned to visit. The conversation was casual, yet her presence felt grounding. After a while, the silence stretched comfortably. My pulse slowed. Then Natalie spoke up, voice gentle. "You seem weighed down lately. Sorry if I'm overstepping, but if you ever want to grab a coffee or something, I'm around." Her offer was simple, but the kindness behind it made my throat tighten. "That'd be nice," I said softly. "I appreciate it." She gave me a small smile. "Cool, let me know." We both returned to our workouts, an unspoken understanding passing between us that we each had complicated lives. But it felt good, having someone see me as a person rather than just a bundle of stress. Later that night, I got a text from Linda. "Heard from Redwood High. Harrington is on administrative leave pending further investigation. Keep me posted if we get new intel." I stared at the message, my stomach fluttering. Administrative leave. That was a big step for the district. They didn't do that lightly. So it was official. My complaint had teeth. They must have found the photos compelling enough to sideline him. A swirl of emotions rose in my chest. Triumph, guilt, anger, relief. I'd lit a fuse under Marcus Harrington's career, and by extension, rattled Sophia's sense of security. That was the plan, wasn't it? To show them I wasn't just some clueless husband waiting at home. Still, I couldn't deny how heavy it felt to wield that power, no matter how justified. At the kitchen counter, I poured myself a glass of water, my hand trembling. I replayed an image of Sophia and Marcus from the pictures, her leaning into his chest, eyes bright with affection. Now those eyes might be filled with panic. My lips pressed into a thin line. I reminded myself of all the conversations Sophia had with me, the casual threats about divorce and child support. She never hesitated to corner me. So did I owe her or Marcus any mercy? Probably not. After flipping off the kitchen light, I stood by the window, gazing out at the dark parking lot. A few lampposts cast orange halos on the pavement. In a few days, Sophia would be back from Hawaii, expecting to see me humiliated or gone quietly. Instead, she'd return to a silent, half-empty house, a threatened lover, and whispers of scandal. Maybe then she'd grasp how deeply she had miscalculated. I used to think there was a limit to how many surprises life could throw at you in a short span. But in the days following my complaint to the school board and the subsequent news of Marcus Harrington being placed on administrative leave, I learned otherwise. The real bombshell arrived on a damp Saturday afternoon, when Sophia finally returned from Hawaii. I wasn't there to witness her homecoming, of course. I was safe in my apartment, sipping stale coffee and half-watching some home renovation show. But I'd imagined the scene dozens of times. Her flight landing in the morning, her breezing through the front door of our old house, expecting me to be inside like a dutiful husband. Instead, she would find the space emptied of my presence and a legal envelope on the kitchen counter. Around noon, my phone began buzzing like mad. I glanced down, multiple calls from an unknown number and a few from Clara. My stomach tightened, but I ignored them. I'd decided that letting Sophia's fury stew for a bit was part of my strategy. It felt cold, maybe it was, but that was the path she forced me onto. At 1 p.m., I got a text from David. She's calling everyone, frantic. Tried me earlier. I played dumb. Be ready. I exhaled slowly, staring at his message. Be ready. I wasn't sure if I'd ever be truly ready to confront the woman who'd turned our marriage into a sham, but I'd come too far to back down. I had to see this through. An hour later, my attorney Linda Johnson rang. Andrew, I just received word from Sophia's representation. Looks like she read the divorce papers. They want to set up a meeting to discuss settlement options. Linda explained, her tone crisp. You think it's genuine? I asked, pacing my small living room. They might be testing the waters, Linda said, but it's progress that she didn't outright ignore them. We'll schedule something for next week. I thanked her, heart pounding. The reality of a formal legal confrontation was unnerving, yet I felt a grim satisfaction knowing that everything I'd worked to uncover was pushing Sophia into a corner. That evening, I decided to step out for dinner at a local Italian place a few blocks from my apartment. Going alone felt odd, but I needed a break from my walls and from the swirl of thoughts in my head. I changed into a casual shirt and jeans, trying not to look as exhausted as I felt. Walking in, the restaurant's warm lights and the smell of garlic offered a brief comfort. The hostess led me to a small table near a corner. I ordered a plate of pasta and a glass of iced tea, my mind half on the menu and half on the reality that my wife was probably raging somewhere across town. Just as my food arrived, I heard a familiar voice behind me. Natalie. Turning in my seat, I spotted her entering with a friend, a petite woman with short blonde hair. They were scanning the restaurant for a table. Catching my eye, Natalie waved, looking a bit surprised. I motioned them over. She seemed hesitant, then approached my table, her friend trailing behind. Andrew, Natalie greeted, giving me a small smile. I didn't know you dined here. Mind if we join you? It's busy tonight. I glanced around. Indeed, nearly every table was occupied. Sure, I said, feeling a subtle warmth at the idea of sharing a meal with friendly faces. Natalie introduced her friend as Caroline, who worked at the same bank as her sister. They sat down, and soon we were chatting. I tried to keep the conversation light, focusing on harmless topics. I didn't want to drag them into my personal drama. After a while, as we were finishing our meals, I saw the door swing open and in walked Sophia. My heart nearly stopped. Her face looked drawn, eyes scanning the crowd. When she spotted me, her expression hardened into a mix of anger and disbelief. Natalie and Caroline, still mid-laughter about a story, went quiet. Sophia strode right toward our table, ignoring the hostess who tried to greet her. I felt a rush of adrenaline. I told myself to stay calm, to let her be the one who snapped first. Andrew Carter, she hissed, stopping a foot away. Her tone was loud enough to make nearby diners shift uncomfortably. She wore a stylish blouse and designer jeans, as though still in vacation mode, but her posture was tense knuckles tight around her purse strap. So this is what you've been doing? Cozy dinners while I'm gone? I swallowed, setting down my fork. You're making a scene, Sophia. She let out a bark of a laugh. A scene? You left our home, our daughter, and served me with divorce papers. You refused my calls, and now I find you enjoying a night out with them? She shot a sharp glare at Natalie. Natalie tensed, eyes flicking to me. Caroline stared at her lap, clearly uncomfortable. I rose from my chair, hoping to redirect the conversation away from them. "We can talk outside," I said calmly. Sophia shook her head, voice dripping with contempt. "No, we'll talk right here. Why are you doing this to me? I'm your wife. We could have handled this discreetly." "Discreetly?" I repeated, a hollow laugh escaping my lips. "You brought your lover to Hawaii, threatened me with divorce. You roped Clara into your lies. There's nothing discreet about that." My voice stayed low, but the tension was thick. She looked around, realizing half the restaurant was listening. Her cheeks flushed, but she refused to lower her volume. "You think you're some martyr?" she spat. "You went behind my back to sabotage Marcus, got him suspended from his job." I squared my shoulders, ignoring the pounding in my chest. "He jeopardized his own job by sleeping with a married parent of his student. I just made sure the school board knew." Sophia's eyes gleamed with fury. "You're enjoying this," she accused, voice trembling. "You're punishing me for wanting something you couldn't give." I gritted my teeth. "No, I'm protecting myself from your lies. Now please, you're causing a scene." She let out a shaky breath, glancing at Natalie again as if she was the enemy. "Who is she?" she demanded, voice laced with jealousy. I could sense Natalie's discomfort, but she held her head high. "I'm just a neighbor," she said, tone polite, "and I'm not responsible for your marriage troubles." Sophia scoffed. "Yeah, sure." Her gaze zeroed in on me again. "This isn't over, Andrew. You can't just vanish and expect me to roll over. Clara is devastated, in case you care." My gut twisted at the mention of Clara, but I kept my expression guarded. "I do care, but you created this situation. I'm done living a lie." Sophia blinked, tears threatening to surface behind her anger. She stepped back, giving me a long, bitter stare. "I loved you for 20 years, she said almost quietly. "And this is how it ends?" Before I could muster a response, she spun around and stormed toward the door. The hostess gave her a wide berth, and within seconds, Sophia was gone into the night. A wave of uneasy silence settled over the restaurant, with a few patrons staring at me. I sank down, pulse roaring in my ears. Natalie and Caroline exchanged glances. Finally, Natalie reached across the table, her voice gentle. "Andrew, you okay?" I forced a half smile, though I felt a lump in my throat. "I'm fine," I lied. "Sorry you both had to witness that." Caroline cleared her throat, eyes kind. "It's all right. We've all dealt with awkward ex situations. But wow, she came in hot." I could only nod, not trusting myself to speak without trembling. A server, looking pale, asked if everything was all right. I assured her it was, though I noticed the entire staff seemed on edge. Within minutes, the tension drained from the room. Conversations resumed, plates clattered. But inside me, the confrontation replayed like a broken record. Sophia's accusations, her fury, the knowledge that Clara was caught in the middle. I managed to pay for our meals. Natalie placed a gentle hand on my shoulder, offering me a ride home, but I said I'd be fine walking. I needed the cool night air to clear my head. Outside, the sky was drizzling a light rain. I pulled up my jacket collar, ignoring the droplets. My chest tightened with the realization. This was just the beginning. Sophia was back, and now she understood how far I was willing to go. She would fight just as fiercely, no doubt. As the darkness pressed in around me, I resolved not to let guilt or fear derail me. I had to keep my focus protecting myself, finalizing the divorce, and making sure I didn't fold under her emotional manipulations. Yet, as I reached my apartment building and fumbled for the key, all I could think about was Clara's name on Sophia's lips. "Clara is devastated, in case you care." That pang of parental guilt refused to go away. Part of me wanted to call Clara, tell her my side, but the rest of me remembered how she'd laughed about the Hawaii trip, how she'd helped her mother deceive me. I pressed my forehead against the door, exhaling. "Not now," I whispered to myself, stepping inside. If there was a time to reconnect with Clara, it wasn't this moment when I still reeled from her mother's vitriol and the sting of betrayal. 2 days after Sophia's dramatic entrance at the Italian restaurant, I woke to a string of missed calls from Clara. This time she left a voicemail. My heart slammed in my chest as I tapped play. "Dad, it's me." Her voice cracked with tears. "I need to talk to you. Ben broke up with me last night. He said he can't handle being around someone who thinks cheating is normal. I don't know what to do." My grip tightened on the phone. I knew from scattered bits of info that Clara had been dating Ben for a few months. A decent kid from what I could tell, but we'd never been super close. The last I heard, they were happy. Now it seemed my daughter was reaping the consequences of echoing her mother's twisted logic. Part of me felt an urge to comfort her, remind her she wasn't alone. Yet there was a bitter memory that she'd played a role in Sophia's betrayal, keeping secrets, belittling me behind my back. The wound was fresh. Still, she's my daughter, I told myself, pacing my living room, phone in hand. Eventually, I tried calling her back. It rang twice, then she picked up. Her breathing was ragged, like she'd been crying. "Dad?" I swallowed the knot in my throat. "Hey, Clara, got your voicemail." "Did you hear what I said?" she asked, voice trembling. "Ben dumped me. He said that if I'm anything like Mom, he can't trust me." I closed my eyes, recalling how I felt that first night I discovered their deception. Betrayal does that to people. "I'm sorry," I offered, keeping my tone steady. "That must hurt." She sniffled. "Yeah, it does. Dad, I know you're mad at me, but I didn't think it would go this far. I thought Mom's thing with Marcus was just about her feeling good. I didn't know it would blow up." A part of me seethed at her naivety. "That's not how life works, Clara. Actions have consequences." Her breath hitched. "I know that now, okay? Look, can I see you? In person? I need my dad." A pang of longing hit me. But images of her laughter mocking me with Sophia flashed through my mind. "I'm not sure that's a good idea right now," I said quietly. "I'm dealing with the divorce and everything else." Her voice cracked again. "So you're just going to shut me out?" "Dad, you know I never meant to hurt you." I didn't answer immediately. My reflection in the TV screen looked haunted, older than my 41 years. "I think we both need time," I finally said. "I'm sorry about Ben, but I can't pretend everything's okay between us." She tried to speak, but I gently ended the call, feeling my heart pound with a mix of guilt and resolve. She'd chosen her mother's side, participated in that deception. If she was learning a harsh lesson now, maybe it was necessary. "But she's your daughter. How long will you punish her?" A voice in my head whispered. I shoved that thought aside, telling myself I had too much at stake to open old wounds just yet. Later that day, as I rummaged through my fridge for lunch, I realized I had barely any groceries left. Even the carton of orange juice was down to its last sip. With a sigh, I grabbed my keys and headed out to the local supermarket. Running errands kept me busy, kept my mind from spiraling over family drama. In the produce aisle, I half expected to bump into someone else from my old life, maybe a neighbor who'd ask awkward questions about Sophia or one of Clara's friends. Instead, I managed to shop in relative peace. I picked up apples, a loaf of bread, some chicken for the week. All the normalcy of everyday life felt jarringly out of sync with the storm swirling around me. I was loading bags into my trunk when my phone buzzed. A text from Linda. "FYI, Sophia's attorney is pushing for a meeting soon. They want to discuss settlement. Next Wednesday at 2 p.m. confirm if that works." I typed back. "Yes, that works. Thank you." Then I tossed the phone onto the passenger seat, exhaling. In less than a week, I'd be sitting across a table from Sophia and her lawyer, hashing out the details of the divorce. Part of me dreaded that moment. Another part was ready to face it head-on. The next morning brought another complication. I was sipping coffee when I got a text from an unknown number. It read, "Andrew, it's Ben. I got your number from a friend. Need to talk about Clara." My brows shot up. I hadn't expected her boyfriend, ex-boyfriend now, apparently to reach out to me directly. Curiosity won out. "Okay, I'm free this afternoon," I replied. We arranged to meet at a small cafe near the high school. I arrived first, grabbing a booth near the window. A few minutes later, a lanky teen in a hoodie walked in, scanning the tables. He spotted me, gave a shy wave, and slid into the seat opposite me. "Mr. Carter?" he asked, voice wavering. "That's me. You're Ben?" He nodded, fiddling with his phone. "Yeah." Thanks for meeting me. The overhead light highlighted dark circles under his eyes. He looked stressed, maybe a bit regretful. Look, I know things are messed up between Clara and me right now. I studied him, unsure why he'd approach me. So why did you want to talk? This is between you and Clara, right? He rubbed the back of his neck. I know, but she's real upset. I can't handle how she keeps saying it's normal to cheat or take a lover if you need it. I tried explaining that's not how I see relationships. His eyes darted away. She said that's what her mom taught her. It freaked me out. A flicker of anger bubbled inside me, imagining Sophia poisoning my daughter's view of relationships. Clara's hurting, Ben. She's confused. She thought it was harmless because, well, that's what her mother told her. He nodded, biting his lip. I just wanted to say, I'm not a bad guy. I didn't want to ghost her, but I can't be with someone who laughs off cheating. I let out a slow breath. I understand. I'm sorry you're caught up in this. It's not your fault. He studied me carefully. You left the house, right? I stiffened slightly. Yes, things got complicated. I'm trying to protect myself. He fiddled with a soda cup he'd bought, eyes lowered. Clara said you won't talk to her. I felt a pang. That's complicated too. Look, Ben, I care about my daughter, but I can't fix how she sees the world overnight. He swallowed. Yeah, she texted me, apologizing. But I can't deal with the drama from her mom. I thought maybe if you two sat down, I held up a hand, firm but not unkind. I'm sorry, but I can't right now. Maybe in the future, but I have a divorce to handle first. Ben nodded, shoulders sagging. Guess that's all I needed to hear. He stood up to leave, then paused. Thanks for meeting me. I didn't know who else to talk to. His raw sincerity struck me. Take care, Ben. Really? After he left, I sat there for a moment, swirling the remnants of my coffee. The weight of everything pressed down on me. Clara's heartbreak, my guilt, and the bigger war with Sophia. This is the fallout of revenge, I thought. It wasn't just Sophia or Marcus feeling the consequences Clara was suffering too, whether she admitted her role or not. That evening I got another call from Clara, but I let it go to voicemail. I already knew the gist. She wanted comfort, reassurance that we'd fix this. Yet the betrayal still gnawed at me, and I felt uncertain how to reconnect without reopening fresh wounds. Maybe I was punishing her. Maybe I was protecting myself. I wasn't sure anymore. Before bed, I reflected on how my revenge had impacted those around me. Marcus was facing job loss, Sophia was cornered, and Clara was losing her relationship with Ben. Everything seemed to be crumbling. The question weighed heavily on my mind. Am I okay with this collateral damage? I stared at the ceiling for a long time, the darkness pressing in. Part of me whispered that it was too late to turn back. This was the path Sophia had paved with her lies, the path Clara had cheerfully walked alongside. Now they were stumbling in the aftermath. I told myself they made these choices, yet I couldn't shake the ache in my chest. News traveled fast. After the school board inquiry, Marcus Harrington officially cut ties with Sophia. Ronald, my private investigator, forwarded me a brief update indicating that Marcus didn't want further involvement with her. The scandal had been too risky for him, and he was likely fighting to salvage his teaching credentials. I read that report 3 times, letting the words sink in. Left her feeling used and abandoned, Ronald wrote. A surge of conflicting emotions rippled through me, satisfaction that she got a taste of betrayal, pity that she was alone, anger that she ever chose him in the first place. Then the rumors reached me. Sophia, reeling from the loss of her lover and the intense legal pressure, had started hitting local bars. David heard from a mutual friend that she was spotted at a downtown lounge, Twilight's, drinking well past midnight. Another acquaintance mentioned seeing her dancing wildly with strangers at a club, looking lost. I tried not to dwell on these stories, but they kept popping up through different channels. Linda, my attorney, reminded me that her public behavior, especially if it was reckless, could work in my favor for property settlement. I nodded in grim agreement. The cold, strategic side of me recognized the advantage. But a part of me, a part that remembered the good times, felt uneasy, knowing how far Sophia had fallen. Financially, I'd also tightened the screws. On Linda's advice, I canceled all joint credit cards except the one allocated for basic child support. Any large transactions would flag immediately. The day after I made those changes, I got a furious voicemail from Sophia, swearing at me for restricting her freedom. She said she deserved more, that she'd put her life into our marriage. I deleted the message without responding. Meanwhile, I continued focusing on daily routines to ground myself. Work had ramped up, giving me an excuse to stay late, refining mechanical designs for a new logistics system. In the midst of drafting 3D models, I'd sometimes feel a pang of raw emotion like a bruise that never fully heals. One night, leaving the office around 7 p.m., I decided to stop by a sandwich shop near downtown for dinner. As I walked in, I noticed the hostess, a young woman with bright pink hair, glancing nervously at a nearby table. Following her gaze, I spotted Sophia slumped over in a booth, half-empty cocktail glass in front of her, hair disheveled. My stomach lurched. She was wearing the same blouse I'd seen at the restaurant confrontation, now wrinkled and stained. She looked exhausted, cheeks flushed. The hostess whispered, she's been here a while, sir. Keeps asking for more drinks. The bartender cut her off." I almost turned around to leave, not wanting to engage. But something made me step forward, pulse hammering. I approached the table. "Sophia?" I said quietly. She lifted her head, eyes bloodshot. For a moment, she didn't seem to recognize me. Then a bitter laugh escaped her lips. "Oh, the husband who's divorcing me. How sweet. Come to gloat?" I stayed standing, arms folded. "I just want to make sure you're okay." The words felt alien coming from me, but it was partly true I didn't want her driving if she was in that state. She rolled her eyes, tapping the empty glass. "I'm wonderful," she slurred. "Lost my boyfriend, losing my house, losing everything because of you." I clenched my jaw. "That's not entirely fair, Sophia. You made choices." She snorted, pushing the glass away. "Always so righteous, Andrew. You think you're a saint? You forced me into a corner, cut off my cards, humiliated me in front of everyone." Her voice rose, drawing attention from a couple of customers nearby. I exhaled slowly. "Keep your voice down, please." If there was going to be a scene, I at least wanted to avoid another public spectacle. She glared, then slumped back, tears brimming in her eyes. "I just wanted to feel alive," she mumbled, as if talking to herself. "And now I feel like a worthless piece of trash." For a moment I felt a flicker of pity. This broken woman was a far cry from the confident, stylish wife I once knew. "I'm sorry you feel that way," I said quietly, "but I'm not the one who made you cheat." She stared at me, tears cutting paths down her cheeks. "You could have forgiven me," she whispered. I never asked you to leave. I asked you to understand." A bitter laugh escaped my throat. "Understand what? That you wanted your boyfriend and your husband under the same roof? That's not understanding, that's humiliation." She closed her eyes, tears spilling. A moment later, she reached for her purse, fumbling for her wallet. No luck. I can't pay," she slurred. "They said my card's canceled." I tossed some cash on the table, enough to cover her tab and a tip. "Consider it done," I murmured. "But you need to get home safely. Did you drive?" She shook her head. "Taxi. I wasn't that stupid." "Good," I said. Then, summoning the hostess, I quietly asked her to call a cab for Sophia. I doubted she'd remember this kindness in the morning, but I couldn't just leave her there. Before I walked away, she grabbed my arm, eyes full of pain. "You might be divorcing me, Andrew, but it's your fault too. You neglected me. You got old and boring." Anger flared, but I suppressed it. "Look at yourself, Sophia," I said softly. "Ask if any of this is worth the betrayal you orchestrated." Her grip slackened. She sank back into the booth, tears still trickling. I turned away, every muscle in my body taut. The hostess gave me a sympathetic nod, and I left the restaurant, my appetite gone. That night I couldn't sleep. Her words echoed in my head. "You might be divorcing me, but it's your fault too. You got old and boring." She blamed me for everything, refusing to accept her share. The irony was, I used to fear I was the boring husband, maybe I was, but it never justified her actions. Days passed. I heard more reports of Sophia's nights out, aimless bar hopping, occasional drunken flirtations with random men. David even mentioned she tried to borrow money from relatives, complaining I'd cut her off. My phone calls with Linda became more frequent, focusing on how to handle the upcoming settlement meeting. Linda reiterated that if Sophia continued this reckless behavior, it only strengthened my case to keep assets in the divorce. One Friday afternoon, while I was working from home, the apartment buzzer rang. Glancing at my phone, I saw a missed call from Clara again. Pushing aside guilt, I checked the buzzer camera. A man I didn't recognize stood outside. He wore an old baseball cap and a ragged jacket, fidgeting with his phone. After a moment's hesitation, I answered through the intercom. Yes? He peered at the camera. Andrew Carter, I got an envelope for you. Delivery. A surge of caution welled up. Could it be from Sophia or her lawyer? Just leave it at the front door, I said curtly. He sighed. Need a signature, buddy. That's my job. Muttering under my breath, I headed downstairs to the lobby. The man held out a thick envelope, paperwork from a law office I didn't recognize. I signed for it, heart pounding. Once he left, I tore it open. It was an urgent request from Sophia's new attorney, evidently switching from the initial counsel, demanding that I restore certain funds. They threatened a motion for temporary spousal support. I exhaled, scanning the details. They claimed Sophia was left financially destitute by my unreasonable actions. My blood boiled. She was the one who'd initiated the affair, demanded more than I could give. Now, because I cut her off from luxuries, she painted me as the villain? Resisting the urge to hurl the envelope across the room, I marched back upstairs. My laptop blinked with a new email from Linda. She'd clearly received a copy, too, telling me not to panic, that we had strong counter-arguments. The logic was straightforward. Sophia's blatant adultery, the Hawaii trip, the credit card bills, all would undermine her claim to victimhood. Still, reading the letter made me shake with a mixture of anger and sorrow. Even as she spiraled deeper random men, drunk nights, scrounging for cash, she refused to see her part in it. She wanted me to pay for her mistakes. I fired off a quick reply to Linda, then slumped into my desk chair. My gaze drifted to a photo on my phone, a shot from 5 years ago, me and Sophia with arms around each other, both smiling in a park. Looking at it now felt like staring at strangers. The day of the settlement meeting arrived faster than I expected. I found myself in a gray conference room on the 12th floor of an austere office building. Linda Johnson sat to my left, crisp blazer and steely composure. Across the table, Sophia and her new attorney, a sharp-faced woman named Patricia Gilmore, busied themselves with papers. My heart hammered as I glanced at Sophia. Her eyes were ringed with fatigue, and though she wore a neatly pressed blouse, the usual glow in her face was absent. We'd barely exchanged words beyond a curt nod. Linda had advised me not to engage in personal squabbles, to stay professional, and let the lawyers steer the discussion. So I sat stiffly, hands folded, determined not to falter. Patricia cleared her throat, launching into a rehearsed speech about spousal support and how Sophia had devoted her life to the family. I felt a surge of indignation, but Linda placed a calming hand on my arm under the table, reminding me to keep quiet until it was time. Linda responded with equal firmness, presenting a folder of evidence, bank statements, photos from Hawaii, even a timeline showing how Sophia's affair had consumed marital funds. Patricia's expression tightened when Linda mentioned the school board complaint, pointing out that Sophia's lover had put her family's reputation at risk. Sophia gazed at me with a mixture of resentment and sadness, but I refused to drop my guard. She'd forced me down this path, threatened me first. This was the logical consequence of those choices. After nearly an hour of back and forth, Patricia asked for a short recess. Sophia shot me a look before following her attorney to the hallway. Linda and I stayed put, quietly discussing strategy. Keep pressing the adultery angle, she said. Legally, it may not guarantee everything, but it's a strong bargaining chip. And let's not forget we have the credit card receipts and the account closures as leverage. I nodded, though my chest felt tight. This was business, but it was also my life. She's going to try for more money, isn't she? Linda nodded. Yes, but we can counter. We have enough to show that she engaged in marital misconduct, which in many jurisdictions can reduce her share. Remember, if she pushes too hard, we can threaten to go public with the Hawaii evidence. She may not want that. The second round resumed with more tension. Patricia tried to claim that Sophia's emotional distress justified greater support. Linda calmly reminded her that Sophia had orchestrated an affair that spanned nearly a year, using marital funds for trips and gifts. Patricia's cheeks reddened, but she pressed on, questioning the authenticity of some receipts. That's when Linda unveiled what she called my ACE's precise transaction logs from the credit cards, cross-referenced with flight dates and restaurant visits. It painted a picture of Sophia's deception in vivid detail. Each line item hammered home the point. She'd made these choices behind my back, funneling our joint finances into her affair. Sophia squirmed in her seat, glaring at Linda, then at me. "This is disgusting," she muttered under her breath. Linda gave a thin smile. "Adultery often is." Patricia tried one last tactic, stating that Clara's well-being required Sophia to have sufficient resources to maintain a stable home environment. The mention of Clara twisted my gut. I glanced at Sophia, remembering how she insisted Clara was on her side. How had that worked out now? Linda leaned forward. "My client, Andrew Carter, is fully committed to child support, ensuring Clara's needs are met. However, given that Clara is nearly an adult, the calculations differ. We're not talking about an 80-year-old here. Besides, Miss Carter's recent lifestyle choices hardly reflect a stable environment for a child." Sophia's face flushed with anger. "How dare you?" Patricia quickly cut in. "We all want what's best for the family. Let's keep this civil." Linda shot me a glance, silently instructing me to hold firm. I clenched my jaw, letting her take the lead. Another half-hour passed in a blur of demands and counteroffers. The tension escalated until Linda calmly laid out a final ultimatum. If Sophia insisted on an inflated settlement, we'd present the Hawaii affair evidence in open court, along with details about her reckless spending and rumored nightlife. That, plus the school board's inquiries, would cause maximum embarrassment. Patricia stared at Linda. "Is that a threat?" "It's reality," Linda answered evenly. "We have the documentation. Use it if necessary." At that, Sophia's shoulders sagged. She shot me a wounded look, tears threatening in her eyes. "You're really going to drag me through the mud? After everything?" For a moment, raw guilt flickered inside me. But I remembered the nights I lay awake, humiliated, betrayed, threatened with child support if I didn't agree to share my wife. "I'm doing what I have to," I said quietly. Sophia's lip quivered, but no words came. Eventually, Patricia sighed, flipping through some papers. "All right," she said. "My client will consider signing a settlement if the terms are somewhat reasonable. But we won't be bullied." Linda's gaze was steady. "It's not bullying. It's disclosure." Minutes later, we hashed out the broad strokes. Sophia would vacate the marital home after Clara's high school graduation. She'd receive a modest portion of our savings, along with strictly defined child support until Clara turned 18 or started college, whichever came first. No additional spousal support beyond a short transitional period. It wasn't an official document yet, just an agreement in principle. For a moment, the conference room grew eerily silent. Then Patricia announced they needed time to review, but it appeared we'd reached a tentative understanding. Linda shook hands with Patricia, sealing the uneasy truce. As I gathered my files, Sophia lingered behind, watching me with haunted eyes. "So this is what it's come to?" she murmured. My throat felt tight, but I forced myself to speak evenly. "You gave me no choice." She swallowed, tears brimming. "I never wanted to lose you, Andrew. I just needed more." Her voice cracked on the last word. I thought of all the times I'd tried to reason with her, the times she'd told me it was just biology, that I was insufficient. I couldn't conjure a comforting response. "Then you should have talked to me before you started seeing him," I said, turning away. She let out a shaky breath. "He's gone now anyway. Everyone's gone." The raw hopelessness in her voice tugged at my chest, but I hardened my resolve. I'm sorry it ended like this. And I was on some level, but regret wasn't the same as forgiveness. She took a step closer, eyes glistening. When Clara finds out how final this is, it'll destroy her. I felt a stab of guilt. Clara was indeed caught in the crossfire. She made her choices too, I said softly, though I hated how cold I sounded. Sophia blinked away tears. We both did. Then, without another word, she brushed past me and left the conference room. I slumped into a chair, pressing my palms over my face. Linda set a hand on my shoulder. "It's tough," she said gently, "but you did well. We're nearly there." I nodded numbly. "Doesn't feel like victory." She sighed. "Divorce rarely does." When I finally got home, the sense of relief was almost drowned by a lingering heaviness. The legal chess match had gone in my favor, but at a steep emotional cost. Leaning against the kitchen counter, I closed my eyes. I thought about how I first met Sophia Bright, fearless. She was the kind of woman who lit up a room. Now we were reduced to threats and carefully worded agreements. My phone buzzed. Linda's text read, "She'll sign the settlement in a few days. Looks like you'll get the outcome we wanted." A wave of complicated feelings surged in me. Satisfaction, sorrow, a bit of numb exhaustion. Looking around the small apartment, I realized how drastically my life had changed in mere months. The husband who worshipped his wife was gone, replaced by a man who forced her to the negotiation table. The father who adored his daughter had become distant, uncertain how to reconcile. But the path was set. I could only move forward, hoping that eventually the damage might mend at least for Clara's sake. For now, the legal war was nearly done, and I'd come out on top. The price of that victory still weighed on me like a stone in my chest, but I couldn't turn back time. I unbuttoned my collar and sat on the couch, letting the quiet hum of the fridge fill the space. A swirl of gratitude that this chapter was almost behind me fought with a lingering sense of loss. Maybe once the ink dried on those divorce papers, I'd finally breathe again. A few days after Sophia grudgingly agreed to sign our divorce settlement, the tension in my chest hadn't eased. I woke each morning feeling like I was bracing for an earthquake. Legally, things were almost done, but on a personal level, my life felt fragile, like one misplaced step could send everything crashing. It was during one of those tense afternoons, while I was revising some paperwork in my apartment, that I heard a knock. I stiffened. My mind ran through possibilities. Linda, maybe, or a delivery person. I certainly wasn't expecting family or friends. Ever since I'd moved here, visitors had been rare and usually unwelcome. Walking to the door, I called out, "Who is it?" "It's me, Clara," came a hesitant voice. My heart lurched. Clara. I debated staying silent, letting her think I was gone, but she knocked again, voice trembling. "Dad, please, I know you're in there." Exhaling sharply, I unlocked the door. Standing in the hallway was my daughter, looking far more uncertain than I'd ever seen her. She clutched her phone in one hand, a small bag slung over her shoulder. Her eyes searched my face, and for a moment neither of us moved. "Hey," I managed, voice tighter than I intended. How'd you find me?" Clara glanced down. "Natalie gave me your address. I asked her not to tell you I was coming." She cleared her throat, awkwardly shifting on her feet. "I just needed to see you." Part of me bristled at the idea of Natalie sharing my location, but I knew she must have had good intentions. Natalie believed in healing fractured relationships, and Clara was my daughter after all. I studied the anxiety in Clara's eyes, the dark circles beneath them. With a sigh, I stepped back, holding the door open. "Come in." She slid past me into the living room. I noticed how her gaze flicked around, taking in the bare walls, the half-assembled furniture I'd barely bothered to decorate. The place was functional but hardly homey. She swallowed hard. "It's smaller than I expected." I shrugged. "It's enough for me right now." Clara set her bag on the floor near the couch and turned toward me, her fingers twisting nervously. "Dad, I'm sorry," she began, voice already cracking with emotion. "I'm sorry I helped Mom hide everything. I thought it was just about her being happy." I felt a familiar pang, anger, hurt, confusion. But this time, her remorse was so raw that I couldn't snap at her. "You did a lot more than just hide it," I said quietly, crossing my arms. "You laughed about my ignorance with her. You undermined me." Tears pooled in her eyes. "I know. I was stupid. Mom made it sound like you'd be fine if you never found out. She said it wouldn't hurt anyone, and I believed her. She drew in a shaky breath. But I never meant to lose you, Dad. I never thought you'd walk away from me. I blinked, mouth going dry. Part of me wanted to remind her that she'd walked away from my feelings first, choosing to side with Sophia. But seeing her face streaked with tears, I realized this was still my child, the same one who used to climb on my lap after a bad dream. She was 18, yes, but heartbreak and regret had eroded the teenage bravado she once flaunted. I gestured for her to sit on the couch, and she sank down, wiping her cheeks. I took a seat on a nearby chair, keeping a short distance. "Why now?" I asked, voice gentler than before. Clara sniffled. "Because everything's fallen apart. Ben dumped me. Mom is never home or sober, it seems. I feel like my life is crumbling, and I realized you're the only one who's always been stable. I messed up so badly, Dad." She buried her face in her hands. For a moment, I watched her shoulders tremble. My chest tightened with conflicting emotions, anger at how easily she'd dismissed me before, pity at how lost she seemed now, love that reminded me she was still my daughter. I cleared my throat. "Clara, I won't lie. You hurt me deeply. It wasn't just about the affair. You treated me like I was an idiot. You acted like it was normal for a wife to cheat and a daughter to help keep it secret." She lifted her red-rimmed eyes. "I know, Dad. I was wrong. I'm sorry." Her voice wavered. "I've seen what cheating really does. I watched how Mom's life unraveled, how it made you miserable, how it scared Ben away. I wish I could take it back, everything I said, but I can't." I pressed a hand to my forehead, heart pounding. "No, you can't. And I can't pretend it never happened, but—" I paused, swallowing the lump in my throat. "Maybe we can move forward if you're truly willing to earn back my trust." She looked up with a flicker of hope. I am. Whatever it takes." Silence clung between us, thick with the ghosts of betrayal. Finally, I stood and walked to the window, staring out at the parking lot below. "I've been so angry, Clara," I admitted, voice low. "I felt like I lost both my wife and daughter in one go. I'm not sure how to navigate that." Clara stood as well, stepping closer. "I can't blame you. I get it if you can't forgive me right away." Her hands twisted in front of her. "But I want to be in your life. I don't want to choose Mom over you anymore." Her words landed heavily, stirring a fragile sense of relief. I turned to face her, arms at my sides. "I appreciate that," I said softly. "We can try, but it'll take time. I need you to understand that trust isn't just words, it's how we treat each other." She nodded vigorously. "I'll prove it. I promise." I studied her face, a swirl of old memories flickering. Clara learning to ride her bike, Clara beaming after a spelling bee, Clara confiding in me about her first crush. The love for my daughter hadn't disappeared, it just lay buried under layers of hurt. Slowly I held out my arms, and she rushed forward, hugging me tightly. For the first time in months, I held my daughter without resentment poisoning the air. She wept into my shoulder. I blinked against tears that threatened my own eyes, patting her back gently. "It's okay," I whispered. "We'll figure this out." After several moments, we separated, both wiping our faces. I cleared my throat, gesturing to the small kitchen. "Can I get you something to drink? Water? Soda?" "Soda's good," she said softly, following me. As I handed her a can, she managed a weak smile. "This place is quiet." I let out a humorless chuckle. "Too quiet, maybe, but it's peaceful." She nodded, glancing around at the sparse furniture. "Do you stay here alone? What about Natalie? Mom says you're dating her?" My cheeks warmed at the mention. "We're, seeing each other," I said, keeping it simple. "She's been supportive." Clara lowered her gaze. "I like her. She's nice and honest. That's rare, I guess." I caught the hint of regret in her tone. Instead of pressing, I changed the subject. "So how's school?" A sad shrug. "It's okay. I'm passing. Hard to focus sometimes with everything." She fiddled with the soda can. "Mom rarely comes home at normal hours, so the house feels empty." The mention of Sophia made my stomach clench. "I heard she's not doing well," I said cautiously, not wanting to invite too much detail. Clara bit her lip. Yeah, she's been missing work or showing up late. I don't think she's paying bills on time. I found notices stuffed in drawers. Her voice quivered. Dad, I know you're mad at her, but I'm worried. I closed my eyes briefly, the weight of her worry pressing on my chest. Clara, she's your mom. I know you're scared, but I can't fix her mistakes. Not anymore. Her eyes watered again. I get it, but it's scary to see her like that. I placed a hand on her shoulder. We'll talk more about it, I promised, though I felt torn between protecting myself and protecting Clara. For now, let's focus on you and me. One step at a time. She nodded, letting out a shaky breath. Thank you, Dad. We spent the next hour catching up on smaller details, her classes, the teachers she liked, how she missed me at her recent choir performance. The conversation was awkward at times, but it felt like a bridge was forming, however tentative. By the time she stood to leave, the heaviness in the air had lifted just enough for me to breathe more freely. Clara picked up her bag, hesitating at the threshold. So can I see you again? I managed a small, genuine smile. Yes. Call me or text. I'll try to be better about answering. Relief washed over her features. She slipped out the door, offering a soft, "Bye, Dad," before heading down the hall. I closed the door behind her and leaned against it, exhaling slowly. My hands trembled, residual tension still pulsing through me. But beneath the anxiety, a fragile sense of hope flickered. Our relationship was damaged, not destroyed. Maybe we could mend it. Still, as I walked into the living room, I couldn't ignore the ache left behind by the mention of Sophia's continued downward spiral. Part of me wanted to block it out, she'd made her bed. But another part, the one that used to love her deeply, couldn't shake the gnawing worry. Days after Clara's visit, I found myself juggling a bizarre mix of emotions. Cautious relief about my daughter's return to my life, and a renewed dread about Sophia's well-being. Clara texted me periodically, updating me on her schedule or asking about my day. With each message, I felt our bond strengthening, even if the bruises of betrayal were still fresh. One afternoon, while I was reviewing some design blueprints, my phone buzzed with an incoming call from Clara. "Dad," she said, her voice quivering, "I need help. Mom won't answer her phone, and she's not at work. Her boss called me. She hasn't shown up in 3 days. My pulse kicked up. 3 days? Where is she staying? Clara exhaled shakily. I don't know. Sometimes she goes out to bars and crashes at random places. I'm worried something bad happened. A wave of conflicted feelings rushed through me. This woman cheated on me, threatened me, used me. But hearing the panic in Clara's voice reminded me that at the end of the day, Sophia was still a human being, still the mother of my child. Okay, I said slowly. Have you checked the house? Yes. She wasn't there, Clara replied. A lot of her clothes were scattered. The place smelled like alcohol. I'm scared, Dad. I don't know what to do. I rubbed my temples, staring at the half-finished blueprint on my desk. Logic told me I was under no obligation to rescue Sophia from her own destructive spiral. But Clara's voice shattered that distance. All right, I said. I'll see what I can do. Maybe I'll drive by some of the bars she frequents, talk to a few people. Tension crackled in the air as I ended the call. I felt a flash of resentment. Why should I play detective for the woman who tore my life apart? But I also knew I couldn't leave Clara to handle this alone. That evening, I navigated the city's dim streets, visiting a couple of bars rumored to be Sophia's hangouts. The neon signs buzzed overhead, and cigarette smoke lingered near the entrances. Inside the first bar, a cramped, low-ceiling place called Night Owl, the bartender vaguely recognized Sophia's photo. She was here a few nights ago, he said. Left with some guy. Didn't catch his name. My stomach twisted. The second bar, a rundown spot named Silver Rail, offered a similar story. A waitress recalled seeing Sophia stumbling out with a group after midnight. No leads on her current whereabouts. Growing frustrated, I finally headed toward her house around 10 p.m., though Clara had already checked. Just to confirm, I parked in the driveway, noticing the porch light flickering. The front door was locked, and peering through the window, I saw only darkness. A faint odor of stale booze seeped through the doorframe, making me grimace. I was about to leave when a car rumbled up behind me. Clara hopped out of the passenger seat, followed by a friend, someone I didn't recognize, a tall, dark-haired girl who gave me a tentative nod. Dad! Clara asked, rushing forward. Any sign of her? I shook my head. No. House is empty. Clara's friend, who introduced herself as Mara, spoke up. We called the local ERs. No one by her name checked in. Her voice held quiet concern. Clara hugged herself, eyes darting nervously at the darkened windows. What if she's hurt somewhere? My mind churned through possibilities: jail, a random stranger's house, or worse. We could file a missing persons report, I suggested. Clara bit her lip. She's an adult. The police might not do much unless there's evidence of foul play. I considered calling David, my brother, but something told me we needed to do a bit more searching first. Then my phone pinged with a text from an unknown number. Your wife is passed out in the alley behind Twilight's lounge. Better hurry. My heart lurched. Wife. The nerve. But I couldn't dwell on that. Instead, I glanced at Clara and Mara. I got a tip. Twilight's lounge. Without hesitation, we piled into our cars. 15 minutes later, I pulled into the lounge's back parking lot, headlights sweeping across graffiti-tagged walls. Clara parked behind me. The stench of stale beer and trash cans filled the humid night air. At the far end of the alley, I spotted a crumpled figure leaning against a dumpster. My stomach twisted. Illuminated by a single flickering overhead light, Sophia lay slumped, hair tangled, clothing disheveled. I rushed over, kneeling beside her. Her face was pale, eyes closed, reeking of alcohol. Sophia! I shook her gently. A weak moan escaped her lips, but she didn't open her eyes. Clara let out a choked sob, hovering behind me. Mom? I pressed 2 fingers to Sophia's neck, feeling for a pulse. It was there, but weak and erratic. Her breathing was shallow. At least she's alive. My mind spun with memories of the woman I used to love, once vibrant and radiant, now reduced to this pitiful state. We need an ambulance, I said gruffly. Mara hurriedly dialed 911. I cradled Sophia's head, heart hammering. She stirred slightly, muttering incoherent words. Her skin was clammy, and I realized she might have mixed alcohol with something else or simply drunk herself near unconsciousness. Either way, she needed medical help. The paramedics arrived in a whirl of sirens and flashing lights, loading Sophia onto a stretcher. Clara stood by, tears streaming down her cheeks as she watched her mother's limp form. I squeezed her shoulder. She's still breathing. That's good, I murmured, though my own voice trembled with adrenaline. At the hospital, the sterile white lights and antiseptic smell jolted me back to reality. A nurse directed us to a waiting area while doctors evaluated Sophia. Clara paced anxiously. Mara sat quietly, arms folded, offering moral support. I felt like an outsider in my own story, uncertain how I'd become responsible for the very woman who shattered my trust. After what felt like hours, a doctor approached, tired lines etched on his face. Sophia Carter is stable for now, he said. Severe intoxication and signs of dehydration. No serious injuries, but we'll keep her overnight for observation. Relief spilled through Clara's features. Thank God. She turned to me, expression fragile. Dad, thank you. If you hadn't come... I managed a terse nod, still processing the surreal moment. We did what we had to. My gaze shifted to the doctor. We can see her? He shrugged. She's still groggy. Maybe in a couple hours, once she's more coherent. Clara slumped into a chair, head in her hands. Mara rubbed her back, whispering comfort. I dropped into the seat across from them, feeling drained. The overhead fluorescent lights buzzed, casting harsh shadows on the floor. In that moment, I was reminded how swiftly life can pivot from anger to fear. At length, Clara looked up, eyes bloodshot. Dad, what if she keeps doing this? What if next time no one finds her? A knot formed in my chest. I don't know, I answered honestly. We can't make her stop, Clara. She has to want help. She sniffed. She never listens to me. Maybe she'll listen to you. The irony made my stomach churn. She hasn't listened to me in a long time. A wave of exhaustion hit me as I recalled all the arguments, all the manipulations, but Clara's desperate eyes pleaded for some hope. Let's see what the doctors say, I relented. Hours later, a nurse guided us to Sophia's room. The beep of monitors filled the space. She lay propped against pillows, eyes half open. Even in that state, her gaze flicked to me with a complex mix of shame and hostility. I swallowed, stepping closer. "Hey!" She gave a weak snort, lips cracking. Didn't expect my ex-husband to come to the rescue. I folded my arms. Technically, we're still married at least for a few more days. The tension in my tone was obvious. Clara hovered near the bed, voice shaky. "Mom, you could have died." Sophia closed her eyes, turning her head away. "Maybe that would have been easier," she mumbled. Clara's breath caught in her throat. She reached out to grab her mother's hand, but Sophia didn't respond. My anger flared, but so did pity. Easier? For whom? She'd leave Clara traumatized, me conflicted. I reminded myself that pity wouldn't fix anything if she refused to face her reality. A nurse entered, gently ushering Clara and me out so Sophia could rest. Outside in the hallway, Clara broke down. I pulled her into a side hug, feeling both protective and conflicted. "She's alive," I whispered, as if that was any consolation. Clara looked up, tears glistening. "Dad, I can't watch her kill herself. We have to do something." I sighed, glancing at the closed door behind us. "I'll talk to the doctors," I said, though a hollow dread hollowed out my gut. I didn't owe Sophia anything, but for Clara's sake I couldn't just walk away, not this time. Leading Clara to the waiting area again, I glanced at my phone. A single text from Natalie flashed. "Heard what happened from Clara. I'm here if you need to talk." The wave of gratitude I felt was immediate, knowing I wasn't navigating this chaos alone. I looked at my daughter, eyes red, face pale. She seemed so young despite being nearly grown. "We'll figure something out," I repeated, mostly to convince myself. A call button echoed down the hallway, a reminder we stood in the midst of life's precarious line between tragedy and survival. I inhaled, steeling myself for the next step, whatever that might be. By the time the fluorescent lights blurred overhead, I realized that my revenge no longer felt triumphant. Seeing Sophia like this, I felt no sense of victory, only a sickening hollowness. Maybe it was time to shift my perspective, for Clara's sake, if nothing else. Sophia remained in the hospital for a couple of days, recovering from severe dehydration and acute alcohol poisoning. Clara visited daily, clinging to fragile optimism that her mother might finally turn things around. I hovered at the edges, part of me still furious over everything Sophia had done, yet another part unwilling to abandon her at death's door. In those uneasy hospital corridors, I found a surprising source of strength, Natalie. She arrived one afternoon, stepping off the elevator with a gentle expression. I'd texted her updates on Sophia's condition, half expecting her to keep her distance. Instead, she offered me a warm hug, ignoring the curious stares of nurses and passers-by. "How is she?" Natalie asked quietly, glancing at the room where Sophia slept. "Stable," I sighed. "But the doctors say this isn't just a one-time event. Her body's showing signs of long-term alcohol abuse. She needs a serious intervention." Natalie nodded, placing a comforting hand on my arm. "What's your plan?" I rubbed my temples. "Clara wants me to push for rehab. Sophia might resist, though. She's been lashing out whenever I bring it up." Natalie's gaze flicked to the half-open door where Clara sat next to Sophia's bed, reading quietly. "Clara shouldn't handle this alone. She's a kid, and this situation is above her head." "I know," I murmured. This is Sophia's choice to make." Natalie gave me a sympathetic smile. "Sometimes people in crisis need a bigger push. If Sophia's that far gone, she might not find the will on her own." I thought about how far I'd gone to punish her, tipping off the school board about Marcus, slashing credit cards, pushing for a divorce that left her cornered. That plan had worked from a revenge standpoint, but it left behind a broken shell of a woman. Did I truly want to see her drown in her own self-destruction? Later that day, Clara approached me in the hospital cafeteria, eyes rimmed red from exhaustion. "Dad," she said, swallowing hard, "the nurses told me about a rehab program. They said she's a good candidate, but it has to be voluntary." I studied my daughter's worried face. "Did you talk to your mom about it?" She let out a shaky breath. "She refuses. Says she doesn't need babysitting." "But she's lying to herself. She can't go back to that house alone. Not in this state." I glanced at the bland cafeteria table, the swirl of doubt gnawing at me. "What are you asking, Clara?" She placed a trembling hand on mine. "Help me convince her. If you talk to her, maybe she'll see reason." A bitter irony tugged at my chest. Sophia hadn't listened to me in over a year, but I couldn't refuse Clara's plea. "I'll try," I said, though I had no idea if Sophia would respond to my voice. That evening, I entered Sophia's room. The overhead fluorescent cast a harsh glow on her pale features. She looked up, eyes dull. "Come to gloat?" she muttered. I shook my head, pulling a chair beside her bed. "No, I came to talk about rehab." Her lips thinned, and she started to protest. I raised a hand. "Hear me out. You nearly died out there. This is more than a slip-up. Clara's worried. I'm worried." She let out a hollow laugh. "Since when do you worry about me? You wanted me destroyed, right?" The accusation sliced through me, stirring guilt. "I wanted you to face consequences for what you did to our marriage. But I never wanted you dead." She rolled her head to the side, gaze drifting to the IV drip in her arm. "Well, you got your wish anyway. My life is in ruins." Her tone was bitter, yet laced with exhaustion. "I lost my lover. My job's on thin ice. I'm about to lose the house. And the only place I can afford is probably a rat-infested box. Meanwhile, you have a new woman, a new apartment, everything." My anger flared briefly, but I tempered it. "This isn't about who's winning or losing. It's about saving your own life. Clara can't keep finding you half dead in an alley. She's traumatized." Sophia's throat bobbed as she swallowed. Her eyes flickered with guilt. "I didn't mean for her to see me that way." A weary sigh escaped her lips. "But I can't just wave a wand and be better." "Rehab can help," I pressed gently. "The nurses have a list of reputable facilities. It might be your best chance to get sober before it's too late." Her eyes filled with tears, though she tried to blink them away. "You don't understand. Drinking numbs everything, the shame, the regret, the loneliness. If I go to rehab, I'll have to face it all." I nodded, empathizing despite myself. "Running from it hasn't worked, has it?" She let out a soft, shaky exhale. "No," she admitted in a near whisper. Silence fell, punctuated only by the beep of the monitoring equipment. Slowly, I reached for her hand, something I hadn't done in what felt like ages. It was a gesture of compassion, not romance. Her eyes darted to mine. "Sophia," I said softly, "I'm not here to fix our marriage. That ship has sailed, but you're still Clara's mother. And once upon a time, you meant the world to me. Let us help you." Her tears spilled over then, silent and steady. She squeezed my hand weakly. "I don't know if I can do it," she whispered, voice trembling. "I'm so tired." I swallowed the lump in my throat. "Then lean on us for a while," I said. "Just enough to get through this. Please." Over the next few days, Clara and I collaborated with the hospital staff to arrange a place in a reputable rehab center a few towns over. It wasn't some fancy resort, but a serious program with counselors, medical supervision, group therapy. Sophia remained hesitant, but eventually she signed the admission forms, her hands shaking from withdrawal symptoms. On the morning of her transfer, I waited in the hospital corridor with Clara by my side. A transport ambulance had arrived to take Sophia to the facility. She emerged in a wheelchair, looking frail and haunted, an orderly pushing her along. Our eyes met, and she gave me a small nod, some combination of thanks and shame. Clara stepped up, tears in her eyes. "Mom, I love you," she said softly, hugging her gently. "Please stick with the program." Sophia's lips trembled. "I'll try," she murmured, voice hushed. Then she glanced at me. "Guess this is goodbye?" I managed a small smile, though it felt tight. "For now. Focus on getting better." She held my gaze a moment longer, an unspoken apology flickering there. Then the orderly wheeled her toward the ambulance. Clara followed a few steps, then stopped, letting them go on. The doors closed, and within seconds, the vehicle pulled away from the curb, sirens silent. Clara turned to me, eyes brimming with a mix of relief and sorrow. What if she doesn't stick to it? I sighed, raking a hand through my hair. It's up to her. We've done what we can. That evening, I found myself standing outside my apartment, staring at the sky streaked with late sunset colors. A swirl of thoughts consumed me. I never intended to feel sorry for Sophia again, but here I was, ensuring she got the help she needed. My desire for revenge had dissipated under the weight of seeing her so broken. Natalie arrived not long after, carrying takeout containers of warm pasta. We ate on my small couch, the TV flickering in the background. She placed a comforting hand on my arm. "You did the right thing," she said gently. "Helping her doesn't erase her betrayal, but it does keep Clara from losing her mother." I nodded, chest heavy with complicated emotions. I feel strange, like all the anger that fueled me is fading, replaced by pity or concern. Maybe that's normal. She offered a soft smile. "Maybe you're realizing that real peace isn't found through revenge. It's found through letting go." I gazed at her, heart swelling with quiet gratitude. I guess so. That night, lying in bed, I mulled over the shift in my perspective. Once I'd been consumed by retribution, savoring every blow I dealt to Sophia's life. Now, I only felt weary, wanting stability and calm for myself and for Clara. The bitterness had run its course, leaving me longing for something gentler, maybe even genuine peace. Exhausted, I closed my eyes, recalling the image of Sophia in that hospital bed. For so long, I'd seen her as the architect of my misery, deserving whatever downfall came her way. But seeing her so lost and terrified reminded me that I was better than this endless cycle of hate. I hadn't forgiven her, not really, but I had found empathy, and perhaps that was the first step toward my own healing, too. A week passed after Sophia's admission to rehab. The house felt calm in her absence, though it still belonged to both of us until the final divorce decree. I spent most of my time in my apartment or at work, with occasional visits to handle leftover paperwork. Clara stayed with friends or at her grandparents' place, not wanting to be alone in the big, empty house. Then came the day I'd been bracing for the court hearing to finalize our divorce. The settlement had been negotiated, and all that remained was the official stamp of approval. In the old days, I might have viewed this as a triumphant moment. Now it felt more like a quiet end to a painful chapter. That morning, I dressed in a crisp shirt and slacks, straightening my tie with shaky hands. Outside my apartment window, the sky was overcast, threatening rain, somehow fitting for the solemn mood inside me. I arrived at the courthouse and found Linda waiting in the corridor, files tucked under her arm. "Ready?" she asked, studying my tense expression. I breathed out. "As I'll ever be." We stepped into the courtroom, a modest space with rows of wooden benches. Sophia was already seated on the opposite side with her attorney, Patricia. I noted Sophia's subdued demeanor, no flashy clothes, no defiant posture. She looked thinner, hair pulled back neatly. Our eyes met briefly. She offered a small nod, neither hostile nor friendly. I acknowledged it with a slight dip of my chin. The proceedings began in a flurry of legal formalities. The judge, a stern-faced woman, asked if we both understood the terms of the settlement. We did. Linda laid out the final details. Property division, child support for Clara until she was fully independent, no alimony except for a short transitional period. Patricia confirmed Sophia's acceptance. No one objected. Then came the judge's final words, granting the dissolution of our marriage. My breath caught as she signed the official decree. Just like that, 2 decades of shared life were undone on paper. There was no fanfare, no dramatic confrontation, just the quiet shuffle of documents. Standing, I felt a strange mixture of relief and sorrow. My lawyer patted my shoulder, whispering congratulations, though that word felt out of place. Patricia escorted Sophia out the side door, leaving me alone in the echoing courtroom. I swallowed around the tightness in my throat. In the hallway, Linda gave a small, tight-lipped smile. "You're officially free," she said. "I'll file the decree with the clerk. Congratulations on achieving the terms you wanted." I mustered a polite thank you, though the moment felt hollow. No part of this process truly felt celebratory. "I appreciate your help," I told her. She nodded, gathering her things and heading off to finalize paperwork. I paused near the courthouse exit, exhaling. Free. That was the technical term, but it felt more like stepping out of a storm-battered house, relieved to be alive, yet aware of the wreckage left behind. I forced myself to keep moving, drifting into the busy street outside. It wasn't until I reached my car that I noticed Sophia standing nearby, leaning against a pillar with Patricia a few steps away. She appeared composed, but sadness etched her features. Her lawyer gave me a curt nod and discreetly walked off, leaving us momentarily alone. Sophia's eyes flicked to me. "So," she said, voice quiet, "that's it. We're no longer husband and wife." I shoved my hands in my pockets, nodding. "Yeah, guess so." She pushed off the pillar, stepping closer. "I'm heading back to the rehab center this afternoon. They gave me a day pass for this hearing. Once I'm done there, I don't know where I'll live. The house is up for sale, right?" I rubbed the back of my neck, recalling that Linda had arranged to list the property soon. I didn't want it, and Sophia couldn't afford it alone. "Yes, eventually we'll split the proceeds. You'll get your share." She gave a slight nod. "I understand." For a moment, neither of us spoke, the bustle of downtown swirling around us. Finally, her voice wavered. "Andrew, I'm not asking for anything, but I just wanted to say sorry for everything." My throat constricted. "I appreciate that," I managed. "I'm sorry it ended this way." She looked down, tears threatening to fall. "I've caused so much damage. I don't expect you to forgive me, but thank you for pushing me into rehab. Clara told me how you intervened." I nodded stiffly. "I did it for her. And for you too, I guess, in a way. No one deserves to die in an alley." Her lips trembled at the memory. Then she composed herself, offering a weak smile. "I hope someday, when I'm better, I can have a real conversation with you about all this." I wasn't sure if I could handle that, but I forced a small acknowledgement. "Take care of yourself, Sophia. Focus on getting well." She exhaled, shoulders sagging. "I will." Patricia reemerged from the courthouse door, waving Sophia over. Sophia glanced back at me one last time. Our gazes met a silent farewell to the life we once shared. Then she walked away, disappearing into the midday crowd. Hours later, I found myself driving to the rehab center, feeling an unexplainable pull. The official divorce decree was tucked in my glove compartment, a symbol of my new independence. Yet I couldn't fully move on without at least offering a goodbye under calmer circumstances. When I arrived, I signed in at the front desk, half expecting them to say Sophia had changed her mind about seeing me. But a staff member guided me to a small visiting room with pastel walls and worn chairs. I waited anxiously until Sophia shuffled in, looking fatigued but more alert than before. She paused, apparently surprised. "You came," she murmured. I stood. "Just for a few minutes." She sank into a chair, folding her hands in her lap. "The judge's voice is still ringing in my ears. I can't believe it's over." She blinked at the walls. "No more marriage." I sat across from her, knees almost touching in the cramped space. "No, but that doesn't mean we can't be civil, especially for Clara." She nodded, eyes glistening. "I don't want to drag her through any more nightmares. This place it's tough, but maybe it's what I need." A shaky breath escaped her. "Thank you for not giving up entirely." For a moment, I recalled the day I moved out, the resentment fueling me. It felt like a lifetime ago. "I'm not promising anything beyond civility," I said quietly. "But I do hope you'll recover and be the mother Clara needs." A soft smile tugged at her lips. "That's more than I expected." She paused, hands trembling. "I know I can't fix the past, Andrew, but maybe we can build a future where we aren't enemies." The mention of a future without hostility felt both relieving and sad. "We'll see," I replied. "Focus on your treatment first." She nodded, tears slipping free. "I will." After a brief, hushed conversation, I stood to leave. Part of me wanted to say more, like how I used to cherish our memories, how I wished she'd never strayed. But the words wouldn't come. This was enough for now, a faint hope that she might reclaim her life, though the bond we shared was irreparably changed. Outside, the late afternoon sun cut through gray clouds, creating a bright patch of warmth across the rehab center's driveway. I inhaled deeply, the air tasting of fresh possibility. The divorce was final. Sophia was in rehab. Clara and I were on the path to mending our relationship. For the first time in months, The next chapter felt open, unburdened by bitterness or the need to strike back. Climbing into my car, I set the keys in the ignition but didn't start right away. I let my head fall back against the seat, eyes closed. So this is what independence feels like, I thought. No more legal battles, no more hidden accounts, no more nights consumed by anger. I could almost feel the tension dissolve from my shoulders. Eventually, I pulled out of the parking lot, heading back toward my apartment, and I hoped a more peaceful life. My phone buzzed with a text from Natalie. How did it go? Want to talk? A small smile touched my lips as I pictured her concerned face. I typed back, "It's done. I'll call soon. Thank you." The road unfurled before me, and with each passing mile, the weight on my chest lightened. I wouldn't pretend everything was perfect. There would be aftershocks, memories, regrets. But for now, I could breathe without the chains of betrayal and revenge dragging me down. As dusk settled, I realized that, at last, I'd truly stepped into a future of my own, making a future shaped by compassion for Clara, respect for my own boundaries, and a cautious sense of hope. The days of retribution were over, replaced by a quiet vow to find what I'd almost lost: peace of mind, genuine connections, and a chance to rebuild on healthier ground. A few weeks had passed since my divorce was finalized, and the quiet was still startling. No more legal meetings, no more frantic calls from Sophia's lawyer. Even Clara and I seemed more at peace, though we both felt the weight of everything that had happened. It was as if we were finally standing on the far side of a battlefield, exhausted, but alive. One mild Saturday morning, I found myself driving to a neighborhood on the outskirts of the city, where wide streets were lined with neat houses and blooming magnolia trees. Natalie sat in the passenger seat, flipping through a printout of real estate listings. She looked over at me, eyes bright with a mixture of nerves and excitement. "I think the next house on our list is just around the corner," she said, tapping the paper. I nodded, heart thudding. We'd been discussing the idea of moving in together for a while. At first, it seemed too soon. My divorce had barely been stamped, but time had a way of softening doubts. After months of heartfelt talks, we decided to pool our resources and find a place that suited us both. Something near Emma's school, with enough space for occasional visits from Clara. The very thought both thrilled and scared me. I'd never pictured myself starting over at 41, let alone merging lives with someone new. We turned onto a tree-shaded lane, the late morning sun filtering through the leaves. The house we were checking out was a white two-story home with a small front porch and a big yard. A for sale sign was planted in the grass, gently swaying in the breeze. Pulling up to the curb, Natalie and I exchanged a look. Could this be it? The realtor, a cheerful woman named Darlene, stood by the front steps, waving as we parked. "Morning," she called. "You must be Andrew and Natalie. Welcome. Shall we go in?" I grabbed Natalie's hand. "Let's do this," I whispered, nerves tingling. She squeezed back and we stepped onto the porch together. Inside, the air smelled faintly of fresh paint. The living room was cozy, with hardwood floors and a fireplace that looked like it hadn't been used in years. I could picture Emma playing board games on a rug, or Clara dropping by for dinner. That image brought a cautious smile to my face. My daughter and I were still rebuilding trust, but I wanted her to know she had a space with me. Even if she had her own life, I longed for a place that felt welcoming for her too. Darlene led us through each room: a modest dining area, a kitchen with updated appliances, a backyard big enough for kids to run around. We paused in an upstairs bedroom that had a wide window overlooking the lawn. Natalie turned to me, eyes glowing. "Emma would love this view," she said softly. I nodded, imagining an 8-year-old's delight at the sight of squirrels scampering on tree branches. "She would," I agreed. "Plenty of natural light for her art projects, too." Natalie's expression softened. "We could make this a real home, Andrew. For all of us." The weight of her words pressed gently on my chest. I thought about Clara, who was now spending more weekends hanging out with me, though not overnight. She hadn't outright asked to move in, but sometimes she'd linger, almost hesitant to leave. With the house, maybe she'd feel she had a real second home. However, a flicker of doubt wormed into my mind. Would it be too soon to blend these worlds so completely? Before I could overthink, Darlene coughed politely. If you folks like it, we can discuss an offer. Places in this neighborhood don't stay on the market long. Natalie and I exchanged a silent conversation through our eyes. I saw the same mixture of excitement and caution in her that I felt in myself. Finally, I cleared my throat. We'll need to talk it over, maybe check a few more houses, but this feels right. Darlene beamed, offering her business card. Just let me know, and I'll get the paperwork rolling. After the showing, Natalie and I wandered the yard, listening to rustling leaves. It's quiet, she murmured, slipping an arm around my waist. I like that. It feels safe. I pressed a kiss to her temple. Me too. Silence followed, not awkward, but thoughtful. We both knew this was a significant step, a symbol that we were truly committing to building a shared life, not just dating casually. Finally, we strolled back to the car. Let's talk to Emma later, Natalie suggested. See what she thinks. She'll probably be over the moon about having her own room again. Yeah, I agreed. And I'll need to mention it to Clara. She's almost 18, but I still want her to feel included if she wants to be. Natalie's gaze softened. She's a good kid, Andrew. She's made mistakes, sure, but she really looks up to you. Don't forget that. I nodded, remembering how Clara had recently confided in me about an upcoming test, how she'd actually asked for advice, something she hadn't done in a long time. My heart clenched with a mix of pride and regret, wishing I'd been more present for her during her darkest moments. But at least we were on a new path now. That evening, back at my apartment, I settled onto the sofa with my laptop. The place felt cramped compared to the house we'd just seen, a reminder that this was always meant to be temporary. The hum of traffic from outside seeped through the window. I opened an email from Darlene, listing mortgage estimates and additional property details. With a sigh, I scrolled through the figures. Are we really doing this? I muttered under my breath. Yes, Natalie said, coming in from the kitchen. She handed me a mug of chamomile tea, that playful grin on her face. We're not jumping blindly. We're planning. We'll handle it together. Her confidence steadied me. I sipped the tea, letting the warmth soothe my nerves. Together, I echoed. Then I paused, meeting her gaze. What about Emma's father? I remember you said he's been out of the picture, but do we need to worry about him or get any formal okay for her living situation? A flicker of unease crossed her features. Jay's been AWOL for years. He sent a birthday card once, but that was it. Legally, I have full custody. He forfeited his parental rights in exchange for no child support drama. So no, we're in the clear. I nodded, relieved. Natalie set her mug on the coffee table and curled up beside me. So are you excited? She asked softly, eyes shining with a hint of vulnerability. A gentle chuckle escaped me. I am, but I'm also terrified. This is huge. I never thought I'd be buying another home with someone new, especially not after everything that happened with Sophia. Natalie stroked my arm. I get that, but we can't let your past define our future. We move forward at our own pace. My heart surged with gratitude. Thank you for being patient. She smiled, resting her head on my shoulder. Thank you for letting me in. The following weekend, Emma accompanied us on a second viewing of the same house. She wore a bright pink backpack and darted from room to room, squealing over the big backyard. Mom, look! She called from an upstairs window. There's a tree that's perfect for a tire swing. Her enthusiasm was contagious, making me laugh despite my lingering anxieties. As we wrapped up, I felt a tap on my shoulder. Emma gazed up at me, eyes wide. Andrew, can we get a dog here? She asked, hopeful. I ruffled her hair. That's something we'd have to discuss, I said, amused. But maybe. She beamed, hugging me. This is the best house ever, she declared, dashing off to examine the kitchen again. My heart tightened as I watched her. The casual way she sought my approval reminded me that I was slowly stepping into a paternal role for Emma, something I never expected. It felt both rewarding and delicate. By the time we left, I could see the decision nearly made in Natalie's eyes. She whispered as we climbed into the car, Emma loves it, and so do I. I glanced at the house one last time through the windshield. The porch, the yard, the quiet street, it all spelled possibility. Let's go for it, I said, exhaling the tension. We'll make an offer. 2 days later, we submitted a formal bid. The waiting game began endless phone calls, documents, negotiations. I juggled my engineering projects at work, occasionally finding my mind drifting to thoughts of painting walls or picking out furniture. Natalie teased me, saying I was getting more domestic by the second. One late afternoon, Clara visited my apartment after her classes. We sat at the small dining table, the sunshine slanting through the blinds. I cleared my throat. "So I've been meaning to tell you something," I said cautiously. "Natalie and I put in an offer on a house." Clara set down her iced tea. "Really?" Surprise flickered across her face, followed by a tentative smile. "That's big news." "It is," I agreed, feeling a ripple of nerves. "It's near Emma's school. We're hoping to move in soon if all goes well. But I want you to know you have a place with us if you want it. I know you're finishing high school and might head to college or get your own place eventually, but the door's open." Clara's lips trembled slightly, as if moved by the invitation. "Dad?" She swallowed, struggling to find words. "Thank you. I'd like to at least have a room there, if that's okay. I won't be in your hair all the time. Just sometimes I miss living under the same roof as you." Emotion welled in my chest. "I'd love that," I managed, forcing steadiness into my voice. "And hey, I'm sure Emma would be thrilled to have you around." She smiled faintly, fiddling with a bracelet on her wrist. "Yeah, she's cute. We hung out once while you and Natalie were picking up groceries. She told me all about her favorite cartoons." Warmth spread through me. This was how life was supposed to feel, shared moments of normalcy. No more secrets or backhanded betrayals. "We'll figure out the details once we finalize everything," I said. "But I'm glad you're open to it." Clara nodded, eyes shining. "I've made mistakes, Dad, but I'm trying to do better. It means a lot that you still want me there." I reached across the table, gently squeezing her hand. "We've both made mistakes. Let's just keep moving forward." In that quiet moment, I felt a wave of cautious optimism. My old life with Sophia was done, the legal ties severed. Now I was building something new, a place that could shelter not just Natalie and Emma, but Clara, too. Despite all the heartbreak behind us, maybe we were forging a fresh start, one slow step at a time. The day Natalie and I closed on the house, a gentle spring rain was falling. We signed the final papers at Darlene's office, exchanging relieved smiles as we accepted the keys. It felt surreal holding tangible proof that we were committing to each other's futures. Not quite marriage, but the next closest thing. "Congratulations!" Darlene chirped, handing over a small gift basket of housewarming goodies. "May this place bring you all the happiness you deserve." Natalie beamed. I murmured thanks, half my mind still swirling with disbelief. We parted ways, stepping out into the drizzle. Natalie looked up at me under the umbrella, her cheeks flushed with excitement. "We're homeowners, Andrew," she whispered. "You, me, Emma, and soon Clara, maybe." I squeezed her hand. "Yeah, hard to believe." We shared a brief, tender kiss, rain pattering on the umbrella, soaking into the edges of our jackets. Despite the gray skies, something bright and hopeful surged in my chest. That weekend, with the final documents in hand, we wasted no time. Natalie arranged a small pre-move gathering at the new house, just for immediate family. Emma ran around the empty living room, squealing about which wall she wanted to decorate. Clara arrived later, after her part-time shift at a local cafe. She carried a paper bag of donuts as a makeshift housewarming gift. "I thought we might need snacks," Clara said, smiling shyly. She and Emma quickly bonded over chocolate sprinkles versus glazed. I watched them from across the room, heart warming at the sight. For so long, my relationship with Clara had been overshadowed by betrayal. Now, as she bantered with Emma, it was as if a new chapter was unfolding, a simpler, lighter one. In the midst of this cheerful chaos, Natalie caught my eye, beckoning me to the dining area. We stepped away from the kids, near a window looking out onto the backyard. "I've been thinking," she began softly, eyes on Emma rummaging through a box of plastic utensils. "Emma's been calling you Drew or Andrew for a while, but lately I hear her slip and almost say Dad." My breath caught. I recalled moments when Emma grabbed my hand in a store or showed me her artwork, glancing up as if checking for paternal approval. "Yeah, I said carefully. I've noticed. I didn't want to push it. Natalie's face softened. I know. But she adores you. The other day she told me she liked having you around because you help her with homework and never get mad if she's slow to learn. Her voice broke a little at the end, revealing her own emotion. I took a slow breath, the weight of fatherhood pressing gently on my chest. I care about her so much, I admitted. I never expected to, but I do. If she wants to call me Dad, I'm not against it, but that's her choice. I don't want to force or fake anything. Natalie nodded, eyes shining with gratitude. She's never known a stable father figure. You're the first person who's been consistent, who shows up for her every time. Emotions surged in me, memories of my own father teaching me about loyalty and presence. I'm here, I murmured, for both of you. She leaned up, pressing a soft kiss to my cheek. Thank you. Later, as we rummaged through paint swatches in the living room, Emma scurried over with an armload of them. Andrew, which color for my room? She fanned them out pink, yellow, lavender. Mom said I get to choose. I knelt beside her, scanning the pastel shades. These are all nice. Which do you like best? Emma pursed her lips, deep in thought. Lavender is pretty, but pink is cute too. She held up 2 cards. Maybe I'll do pink walls and a purple rug, or purple walls and pink curtains. I chuckled. You can't go wrong. But remember, you might change your mind in a year, so pick something you won't hate later. She frowned dramatically. But I love pink. I'll never hate it. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Clara grinning, clearly amused by Emma's conviction. She chimed in, You know, Emma, you could do an accent wall, 1 wall pink, the rest purple. Emma's eyes lit up. Yes, that's perfect. She did a quick twirl, then scampered off to show Natalie. Clara sidled over to me, placing her hands in her back pockets. She's really attached to you, she noted quietly. I think she wants a dad. I swallowed. Yeah, we've talked about it. It's a big responsibility, but I'm trying. A ghost of sadness flickered across Clara's face. I used to want Mom and Dad to stay together forever, she said, voice low. But I guess life doesn't always work out how you expect. My chest tightened with sympathy, tempered by the memory of all we'd endured. No, it doesn't, I agreed softly. But maybe it can still work out in a different way. She nodded, glancing around at the half-empty boxes. I like seeing you happy, Dad, and I like Natalie. She's genuine. Warmth spread through me. Thanks, kiddo. She smirked. You know I'm almost an adult, right? I chuckled. You'll always be my kiddo. In the following days, we dove headlong into the moving process. My old apartment quickly became a staging area of packed boxes and bubble wrap. I realized just how much stuff I'd accumulated, even though I'd lived there a relatively short time. Every item told a small piece of the story tools from my old woodworking hobby, a stack of engineering manuals, the few sentimental items I'd salvaged from my past with Sophia. One evening, as I taped a final box shut, I discovered a forgotten photo album. Flipping through it, I found pictures of a younger me and Clara on vacation, plus some older shots of me with Sophia. A twinge of melancholy ran through me. That life was gone, replaced by this. I wondered if it was normal to feel a pang of loss even when the future looked brighter. Natalie dropped by mid-boxing, arms filled with takeout containers. She pressed a kiss to my cheek and set the bags on the kitchen counter. Emma's with my sister tonight, she explained. I thought you could use dinner. I gave her a grateful smile. You read my mind. I was about to eat stale crackers. While we sat on the floor of my increasingly empty living room, eating teriyaki chicken from paper cartons, Natalie observed me closely. You okay? You seem a bit quiet. I shrugged, swirling noodles around my fork. Just found some old photos and it made me think about the past. I'm good though, really. She reached out, squeezing my hand. It's okay to feel sad, even if you're moving forward. I exhaled, letting the tension slip away. Thanks. That means a lot. We finished our meal, then retreated to the sofa, which was one of the few pieces of furniture left unwrapped. Leaning against Natalie, I felt her heartbeat a steady reassurance. My phone buzzed with a message from Clara. When's the official moving day? I want to help. I smiled. typing back a quick reply. Next Saturday. Your help would be awesome. Setting the phone aside, I looked at Natalie. Clara asked to help move. I like that she's so involved. Natalie's eyes glowed. She's making up for lost time, I think. She wants to show you she's serious about being part of your life again. A wave of gratitude welled in me. I appreciate it. Then I frowned slightly, recalling the outline of our new life. But I still worry if Emma and Clara will clash. The age gap is big 10 years, and Emma might be territorial about her space. Natalie hummed thoughtfully. We'll have to navigate that. Sibling rivalry can happen even with half-siblings or big age differences. But if they talk openly, we'll manage, one day at a time. I nodded, hugging her closer. One day at a time, I echoed. Underneath it all, a cautious optimism took root. I was stepping into fatherhood again, in a different way parenting Emma while reconnecting with Clara. The idea was both exhilarating and nerve-wracking. Could I be the dad they each needed? The night before our official move, I stood in the now barren apartment, reflecting on how much had changed since I first set foot there. I'd arrived broken, furious, determined to unravel Sophia's betrayal. Over time, I discovered a calmer purpose, forging new connections and letting go of old resentments. It was messy, but strangely beautiful. I texted Clara, "We're picking up the truck at 8 a.m., see you then." She replied with a thumbs-up emoji, plus a second message. "Can't wait to start fresh with you, Dad." For a moment, emotion clogged my throat. Start fresh indeed. I flicked off the overhead light, letting the room fall into shadows. Tomorrow, a new chapter would begin in a different home, a home I'd share with Natalie, Emma, and possibly Clara. My life had been turned upside down by betrayal, but it was steadying again, piece by piece. I turned the key in the lock, stepping into the corridor with a box under my arm. My heart felt lighter than it had in a long time. Despite the ghosts of the past, I was embracing a second chance at family, and for once, the future didn't feel terrifying. It felt hopeful. Moving day dawned bright and breezy. Clara, true to her word, showed up at my old apartment in comfortable clothes and a determined grin. Natalie parked her SUV out front while Emma hopped out, bouncing with excitement over the prospect of loading boxes, something most kids dreaded. We rented a small moving truck, which I carefully maneuvered onto the curb. "All right," I said, clapping my hands. "Let's do this." The echo in the nearly empty apartment reminded me how quickly life moves on. Clara grabbed the first box, labeled kitchen stuff, while Emma carried a smaller bag of pillows. Natalie and I tackled the furniture, mostly a disassembled bed frame, and the last few bits I hadn't sold or given away. The mood was oddly cheerful, peppered with jokes about the dusty corners we discovered. The tension of the past months seemed to fade, replaced by a sense of unity. By midday, we were caravanning to the new house. A wide grin split Emma's face as I unlocked the front door. "Home sweet home!" she chirped, dashing inside. Clara followed more slowly, taking in the spacious rooms. "Wow," she murmured, sounding impressed. "This place feels so open." I nodded, my own chest fluttering with pride. "Yeah, plenty of room for everyone." We spent hours hauling boxes, stacking them in the appropriate rooms, kitchen boxes in the kitchen, bedroom stuff upstairs. Emma took charge of her own new bedroom, fussing over where to place her desk. Clara helped Natalie unload groceries and set up basic supplies. I was left to assemble furniture, my mechanical engineer brain oddly satisfied by the puzzle of it all. A few times I caught Clara and Emma talking in hushed tones, heads bent over some random item. Their age gap was obvious, one nearly an adult, the other a bright-eyed kid, but they found moments of camaraderie, especially when they teased me about my questionable taste in lampshades. At one point, I heard Emma whisper, "Clara, do you like it here?" And Clara answered softly, "I think I love it here." My heart clenched hearing that. I forced my attention back to a stubborn Allen wrench so I wouldn't tear up. By late afternoon, the kitchen was unpacked enough to cook a basic meal. Rather than ordering takeout, Natalie insisted on making spaghetti with jarred sauce. While water boiled on the stove, she shooed me away, telling me to take a break. I ventured into the backyard where Emma was spinning in circles on the grass. Clara was perched on a low tree branch, gazing at the sky. I walked over, hands in my pockets. All good? Clara glanced down, pushing a lock of hair behind her ear. Yeah, just thinking about how life can flip so fast. A year ago, I never would have guessed we'd be here. I nodded. Neither would I. She eyed me a moment. I'm sorry about everything, Dad. I feel like I say that a lot, but I mean it every time. My chest tightened with empathy. And I mean it when I say I forgive you, I said gently. Just keep moving forward with me, okay? A small smile touched her lips. Deal. Sometime around 6, we gathered in the living room, sitting on the floor around a makeshift table of cardboard boxes topped with a tablecloth. Spaghetti, garlic bread, and store-bought salad, simple but comforting. The walls were bare, the furniture minimal, yet the atmosphere felt warmer than any fancy dining room could. Emma chatted excitedly about her new school semester, while Clara teased her about becoming a school president someday. Natalie and I exchanged glances, hearts full. Toward the end of the meal, my brother David and his wife Marissa knocked at the door, carrying a housewarming gift. We couldn't let you have your first night here without some celebratory ice cream, David announced, setting down a cooler. He whistled at the half-unpacked boxes. You guys did a lot today. Need help with anything? We all ended up on the porch after dinner, enjoying scoops of melting ice cream while sharing stories. The sun dipped below the rooftops, painting the sky shades of pink and orange. I stood leaning against the porch railing, listening to David and Clara bicker good-naturedly. Natalie perched on the top step, Emma cuddled against her side, a swirl of mother-daughter contentment enveloping them. David eventually pulled me aside, voice low. Looks like you're in a good place, Andrew. I'm proud of you. A wave of gratitude rose in my chest. Thanks, I said, meaning it. I feel lighter, like I'm building something real again. He nodded, gazing around. You deserve it. Just remember to breathe, all right? Merging families isn't always smooth. I chuckled ruefully. No kidding, but we'll handle it. Over the following weeks, we settled into a new rhythm. Some mornings, Natalie rushed Emma to her school, while I headed out earlier for my engineering job. Other times, I'd drop Emma off so Natalie could manage a meeting at her bank job. Clara bounced between staying with me part-time and visiting her mother, who was still in rehab. We rarely spoke of Sophia's situation, but it loomed in the background as a reminder that life could always shift. One Saturday, we organized a housewarming party, a small gathering of close friends and family. David and Marissa arrived first, helping set up a folding table in the backyard. Natalie's sister, Elena, came with her husband, Jacob, and a tray of homemade cookies. Emma ran circles around them, brandishing a bubble wand. Clara hung back, assisting me with a cooler of drinks. The sun was high, warmth radiating from the grass. People mingled, nibbling on snacks. Laughter drifted across the yard. I found myself near the grill, flipping burgers and hot dogs with an uncertain hand. Cooking was never my strong suit, but David gave me pointers. Now and then I caught sight of Natalie, radiant in a light summer dress, talking animatedly with Elena. My heart fluttered, realizing just how deeply I'd fallen for her. In the midst of the party, Clara quietly stepped up to me, clearing her throat. Dad, can I say something to everyone? I blinked, lowering the grill tongs. Sure, sweetie. You okay? She gave a shaky smile. I just have something I want to get off my chest. I turned off the grill, calling everyone's attention. Natalie lowered the volume on a portable speaker, playing soft music. Emma perched on a lawn chair, eyes bright. David and Marissa exchanged curious looks, while Elena and Jacob joined the small circle forming around Clara. Taking a breath, Clara addressed the group, voice unsteady at first. Hey, I know some of you know what happened with my mom and how things got messy. I just wanted to say that I'm really grateful to be here now, with my dad, Natalie, and Emma, building a new kind of family. I used to think, well, that I messed everything up. Maybe I did, but Dad never gave up on me. A hush fell, the breeze rustling overhead branches. Clara's eyes glistened. I'm sorry for the part I played in hurting him, but thanks to him and to Natalie for letting me in anyway. Her gaze flicked my way, and I felt my throat tighten. I promise I won't take this second chance for granted. Natalie walked over, hugging Clara. Others clapped softly, a wave of empathy rippling through the group. I stood by the grill, tears threatening, pride forgiveness, regret all tangled inside me. When Clara turned and reached for me, I stepped forward, enveloping her in a tight hug. A year ago, the distance between us felt insurmountable. Now we stood side by side, forging a bond that felt stronger than ever. A little later, people drifted back to conversations, leaving me and Clara near the fence. I squeezed her hand. That speech was brave. She smiled, wiping her eyes. I meant every word. You okay, Dad? My voice felt thick. Yeah, I managed. More than okay. As evening rolled in, the party wound down. Elena and Jacob said their goodbyes. David and Marissa promised to return soon. Emma dozed off on the living room couch, tuckered out from excitement. Clara retreated upstairs to watch a movie on her laptop. Finally, it was just me and Natalie, standing in the quiet backyard amidst discarded paper cups. She looped her arms around my waist, gazing up. "Your daughter is amazing," she murmured. "I'm proud of her. And you?" My cheeks warmed. "She's come a long way. We all have." Natalie laid her head on my chest. "I remember when you first told me about the affair, how broken you were, but you never lost your core goodness, Andrew." A pause, the crickets chirping in the bushes. "I love you," she whispered, voice trembling with emotion. Tears pricked my eyes again, though I fought them back. "I love you too," I said quietly. My arms tightened around her. The remnants of heartbreak, betrayal, and anger still lingered somewhere in my soul, but they felt smaller, overshadowed by the promise of something better. In that moment, I recalled how I once orchestrated Sophia's downfall so meticulously, believing retribution was the only path to healing. And yet the real healing came not from revenge, but from forging genuine connections with the people who stood by me. Clara's apology, Emma's innocence, Natalie's steadfast devotion, those were the forces that truly pieced me back together. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in pinks and purples. Natalie and I remained there, swaying gently, hearts brimming with contentment. Tomorrow, the house would still be strewn with half-unpacked boxes. We'd face disagreements over paint colors or chores, but for now, we'd hit a milestone, a blended family, redefined by love, acceptance, and a shared commitment to move forward. A few weeks after the housewarming party, life at the new place found its own rhythm. Emma tackled each school day with renewed confidence, occasionally bragging to her friends about her new dad figure. Though she still mostly called me Andrew in public, I noticed how she'd say Dad at home, testing the waters. Each time she did, a strange warmth blossomed in my chest. Clara, too, was thriving. She balanced her last months of high school with a part-time cafe job, saving money for college. Some nights she crashed at the house, especially on weekends. We'd watch movies or cook simple dinners. The tension between her and Emma flared now and then, mostly over TV channels, or whose turn it was to pick music, but with Natalie's steady guidance, they usually resolved it quickly. Meanwhile, my bond with Natalie deepened. We navigated the daily frustrations of blending routines, who took out the trash, who paid the electric bill, but we did so with an undercurrent of genuine respect. Sometimes, late at night, we'd lie in bed, whispering about our fears. Me, about fatherhood and the ghosts of my marriage. Her, about trusting someone again after her ex-husband's betrayal. Yet each conversation ended in mutual reassurance. We were in this together. One Friday evening, Natalie suggested a short getaway. Emma had a school friend's birthday sleepover, and Clara had a weekend shift, plus her own plans. "We could drive up to Lake Willow," she said, eyes shining. "Remember I mentioned my coworker has a cabin there? It's small but cozy, right on the water." My pulse quickened. We hadn't had much alone time since moving into the house. "Sounds perfect," I agreed, craving a moment to breathe amid the swirl of life changes. The next day, we piled an overnight bag into my car and set off. The drive took a couple of hours, winding through scenic roads lined with tall pines. Conversation flowed easily. Natalie teased me about my cautious driving. I teased her about her inability to read maps. The tension of the past year felt distant, replaced by a gentle excitement about the future. Arriving at Lake Willow, we found the cabin perched near a tranquil shoreline, the water reflecting the afternoon sun. It wasn't luxurious, just a simple wooden structure with a small deck and a rowboat tied to a wooden post. but it felt like stepping into a peaceful, slow-motion film. The hush of the pines and the soft lapping of water against the shore lulled me into a sense of calm I hadn't felt in ages. We unpacked, then took a brief walk along the lakeside trail. Natalie slipped her hand into mine. "It's so quiet," she whispered, leaning her head on my shoulder. "I love it." We paused near the dock, watching a family of ducks glide by. The air smelled of pine needles and damp earth. I turned to Natalie, heart thumping. I'd been carrying a secret for a while now, ever since we'd settled into the new house. I felt the urge to take the next step, but I wasn't sure how or when. My battered past made me cautious, yet the more time I spent with her, the clearer it became. I wanted a real future, not just cohabitation. After dinner, we sat on the small cabin's deck, sipping wine as dusk enveloped the lake. The sky turned a deep violet, stars beginning to blink overhead. A gentle breeze rustled the trees. The hush of nature encouraged my racing thoughts. Emma's second dad, Clara's father, Natalie's partner. I realized I wanted something more official, something that said we were in this forever. I excused myself under the guise of needing more wine, heart hammering as I stepped inside. In my jacket pocket rested a small velvet box. A ring. Simple. Not too flashy, a single diamond on a slim band. I'd chosen it a week ago, after agonizing over styles. A wave of nerves hit me like a punch. Am I really ready to propose? Images flicked through my mind. The heartbreak with Sophia, the humiliations, the guilt over my revenge. But then I remembered how Natalie had been a beacon of kindness through it all, how she embraced both me and Clara with unwavering support. Gritting my teeth, I snatched the ring box and slipped it into my jeans pocket. It was time. Returning outside, I found Natalie leaning on the deck railing, gazing at the shimmering lake. Her hair fluttered in the breeze, and in that moment, she looked so at peace it made my chest ache with love. I stepped behind her, arms circling her waist. She leaned back against me. "Look at the stars," she murmured. "I almost forgot how many you can see away from the city." I nodded, breath catching. "Beautiful," I whispered, though my focus was entirely on her. My heart pounded as I cleared my throat. "Natalie, there's something I want to say." She turned, curiosity lighting her eyes. "Yes?" Blood roared in my ears. My hands felt clammy, but I mustered courage. Slowly, I slid to one knee, the deck's wooden planks creaking under me. Her eyes went wide, hand flying to her mouth. I took the small box from my pocket, flipping it open to reveal the modest diamond ring. "Natalie Gray," I began, voice trembling despite my attempt at calm. "You've shown me a kind of love and acceptance I never thought I'd feel again. You helped me heal. You supported me in rebuilding my family, and you've become my partner in every sense. I want to spend the rest of my life proving how grateful I am, and loving you as much as I can. Will you marry me?" Tears spilled onto her cheeks, glinting in the faint starlight. She let out a choked laugh, pressing both hands to her mouth. For a heartbeat, my entire world hung on her answer. Then she nodded, voice shaking. "Yes, oh my God, Andrew, yes!" Relief and joy crashed over me like a wave. I slid the ring onto her finger, my own hands unsteady. She pulled me up, and we fell into a trembling embrace, tears mingling with laughter. My heart pounded so hard I could barely catch my breath. The future I'd once feared too scarred to imagine suddenly felt wide open, brimming with promise. Moments later, we both realized we wanted to share the news with the people we loved, but we also wanted to savor the moment alone. Natalie turned on her phone's camera to record a short video for Emma. She aimed it at us, tears still in her eyes. "Emma, guess what happened?" she whispered, showing me hugging her, ring glinting on her hand. "Andrew asked me to marry him, and I said yes." I beamed at the camera, adrenaline still surging. "Hope you're okay with that, kiddo," I joked. "I'd love to be your official dad." Laughing, Natalie ended the recording. "We'll send it to Emma in the morning. She'll flip." We spent the rest of that evening in a dreamy haze, exchanging excited whispers about how we'd tell Clara, how we'd handle finances, whether we'd have a big wedding or something small. My mind spun. I was a divorced man who once believed he'd never trust in marriage again, yet here I was, engaged to a woman who reminded me that life could be as sweet as the star-filled sky overhead. Eventually, we retreated into the cozy cabin, drifting off to sleep in each other's arms. My last conscious thought was how different this night was from all the lonely nights I'd spent in my old apartment, consumed by anger. That loneliness had melted away, replaced by a sense of quiet wonder. The next morning, we woke to soft sunlight filtering through the cabin window. I made coffee in the tiny kitchenette while Natalie stepped outside to call Emma. Through the window, I saw her animated gestures, smiling wide. My heart soared. This was real. I was engaged to a woman I adored, forging a life with her and our blended family. When I returned with steaming mugs, Natalie was wiping her eyes. "Emma's so happy. She squealed so loud I thought my eardrum would pop," she reported, giggling. "And get this, she says we have to do it on a beach so she can wear a fancy flower girl dress." I laughed, heat flooding my cheeks. That might be a little more extravagant than I pictured, but hey, I'm open. Natalie's expression turned serious for a moment. "Clara. We should call Clara, too." My stomach fluttered. "Yes, let's do it." We dialed her number, putting it on speaker. After a few rings, Clara's sleepy voice answered, "Hey, Dad, everything all right?" Natalie smiled at me encouragingly. "Hey, Clara, your dad has big news." My pulse kicked. "Natalie and I got engaged last night." For a heartbeat, silence. Then Clara let out a giddy laugh. "Oh my God, Dad. Congratulations, that's amazing." I pictured her throwing off her blankets in excitement. Natalie beamed. "We're beyond happy. But we also want to make sure you're comfortable, Clara. This changes the family dynamic, but we want you with us every step of the way." Clara's voice softened. "I'm more than comfortable. This is the best news ever. You deserve it, Dad. I love you both." Emotion flooded me. "We love you too," I managed, blinking back tears. "We'll be back tomorrow, and we can celebrate." We ended the call with mutual excitement. Natalie turned to me, eyes shining. "Everything feels so right." I pulled her in for a tender kiss, heart pounding with a heady mix of relief and joy. The ring on her finger sparkled in the morning light, a symbol that I'd truly moved past the darkest chapter of my life. The betrayal I'd endured once seemed like it would define me forever, but now it felt like a distant storm, replaced by clear skies and new beginnings. Just as we prepared to step outside, my phone vibrated. A pang of surprise rippled through me when I saw the caller ID, the rehab center. The old tension in my chest flared, overshadowing my euphoria. "Sophia?" I hesitated, glancing at Natalie. She noticed my shift in expression. "Who is it?" she asked gently. I swallowed, showing her the screen. "The rehab center," I said quietly. Maybe Sophia wants to talk?" Natalie's brows knitted, concern warring with the happy glow of the morning. "Do you want to answer?" I stared at the phone, heart pounding. The sun still poured through the cabin windows, the ring on Natalie's finger glinting. Our new future beckoned, but the call demanded attention. Slowly, I raised the phone to my ear, uncertain whether I should embrace this conversation or ignore it. A faint spring drizzle pattered against the windows as I set my phone down, heart still fluttering from the call. I was seated at a small desk in the sunroom, my improvised workspace at the new house, staring at a half-finished design sketch for an upcoming engineering project. But my mind wasn't on mechanical details. It was fixed on the voice I'd just heard on the phone, Sophia, calling from the rehab center. I glanced at the ring on my finger, a simple silver band Natalie had given me as a promise ring after I proposed to her. The official wedding was still ahead, but wearing this made me feel anchored. Now that I'd heard Sophia's hesitant, fragile tone, the edges of my newfound peace felt tested. She wanted to see me, to talk. Not about romance. We were far past that. She said she owed me an apology in person. Reaching for my mug of lukewarm coffee, I took a slow sip, letting the bitterness steady my nerves. The door to the sunroom creaked, and Natalie peeked in, concern etched on her face. "Was that the rehab center again?" she asked gently. I nodded. "Sophia wants me to visit." My voice came out shaky, even though I tried to keep calm. "She says she's ready to apologize for everything." Natalie's expression softened into understanding rather than jealousy. "How do you feel about that?" I set the mug aside, leaning back in my chair. Conflicted, I admitted. A part of me doesn't want to open old wounds. Another part can't deny that she's Clara's mom, and she claims she's changed. Natalie circled the desk, resting a reassuring hand on my shoulder. Andrew, I trust you. If hearing her out brings you closure, you should go. She paused, eyes flicking to the ring on my finger. We have a life together. She can't threaten that. I'm not worried about losing you. Emotion welled in my chest. After everything I'd been through, hearing that calm confidence from my fiancé felt like a balm. Thank you, I murmured, covering her hand with mine. I don't want to keep secrets from you. She leaned down, pressing a kiss to my cheek. I appreciate it. Besides, she added with a small smirk, I know you'd never break Emma's heart. Or mine. I managed a laugh, tension easing. Exactly. We shared a brief moment of warmth. Her hand squeezed my shoulder, my cheek brushed hers. Then she slipped out, saying she'd prepare lunch. But as the door clicked shut, my gaze drifted back to the phone. Sophia wanted me to come the following afternoon. The next day, I found myself driving to the rehab center once again. The morning sky was clouded, gray light reflecting off the wet roads. Rain flicked against my windshield, matching my subdued mood. I'd been here before to persuade Sophia to begin treatment. Now she'd been in the program for a few months, apparently making progress. Walking through the double doors, I inhaled the familiar antiseptic smell. A receptionist recognized me, guiding me to a small visitor's lounge where clients could meet family. My pulse thudded as I stepped in. Sophia sat at a table, shoulders hunched, picking at a paper napkin. When she spotted me, her eyes widened and she stood tentative like a stranger unsure of a welcome. Andrew, she said quietly. I nodded a greeting, crossing to sit opposite her. Sophia. Up close, I saw changes in her. Her face looked healthier, the hollow shadows under her eyes less pronounced. She wore a simple sweater and jeans, hair pulled back neatly. No trace of the desperate woman I'd found half-conscious in an alley months ago. My heart clenched at the memory, though. She folded her hands on the table. Thank you for coming. I wasn't sure you would. I exhaled slowly. We have things to address. For Clara's sake, if nothing else. She nodded, gaze drifting to my left hand where I still wore Natalie's ring. A flicker of sadness crossed her features, but she forced a small smile. So, you're engaged. Congratulations. Clara told me a little about it. I raised my eyebrows, bracing for potential barbs or jealousy. But she only sighed, looking regretful rather than resentful. Honestly, I'm happy for you, she said softly. You deserve someone who won't wreck everything. Part of me wanted to say you're right, I do. But I held back, opting for a measured response. I appreciate that, and I'm glad to see you're doing better. Sophia's throat bobbed. I owe you more than I can say, pushing me into rehab, paying for some of it, even though you didn't have to save my life. I see that now. My chest tightened at her gratitude. I did it for Clara, I clarified gently, though I didn't want to sound harsh. She was terrified of losing you. Sophia nodded, eyes glistening. I know. Still, you could have let me self-destruct, but you didn't. And I'm thankful. She took a trembling breath. I also need to say I'm sorry. Not just for the affair, but for dragging Clara into it, for threatening you, for humiliating you. A swirl of old anger and heartbreak churned in my gut, but hearing her voice those apologies face to face struck a chord I didn't expect. Sophia, I began, choosing my words carefully. I've carried a lot of anger toward you, but I don't want that weight anymore. The divorce is final. We both need to focus on Clara's future and our own separate lives. Tears spilled down her cheeks as she nodded. I understand. I'm not asking for friendship or anything romantic. A shaky laugh escaped her. God, I know that ship sailed long ago. I just want us to be civil for Clara. Maybe someday we can stand in the same room without tension, especially if she graduates or gets married someday. The image of Clara's future milestones, weddings, or graduations flickered through my mind. I didn't want those events overshadowed by bitterness. We can work toward that, I agreed quietly. I'm not promising an instant fix, but I won't sabotage your presence in Clara's life as long as you keep yourself on a good path." Her shoulders sagged in relief. "Thank you," she whispered. "I've been focusing on therapy, learning how I ended up using alcohol and affairs as escapes. It's a painful mirror to look into, but I'm trying." I allowed myself a small smile, though sadness still tinged it. "That's good to hear." Then I hesitated, feeling a pang of worry. "This conversation, does it mean you're stable enough to remain in rehab for the recommended period? I don't want you to rush out and relapse." She pressed her lips together. "I'm determined to see the program through. They said I could be out in a few more months if I stay clean and commit to outpatient counseling after." "Stick to that plan," I said, voice firm. "Clara needs a stable mother. Not a perfect one, but stable." Sophia sniffed, nodding vigorously. "I will." After a few more minutes, a counselor gently reminded Sophia that her visitation time was limited. We rose to our feet. Awkwardness lingered, but there was also a strange warmth, like cracks in decades of resentment were slowly sealing up. She extended a hand, then hesitated. I chose to meet her halfway, offering a brief, polite handshake. No more, no less. Walking away, I felt lighter, though my heart pounded with conflicting emotions. So much damage had been done between us, but letting bitterness define my future would only tarnish the new life I'd built. As I stepped into the corridor, I noticed the ring on my hand glinting under fluorescent lights, and I remembered Natalie's unconditional support. Outside the center, the rain had ceased, leaving the asphalt damp and reflective. I climbed into my car and let out a shaky breath. The conversation had been nerve-wracking, yet strangely cathartic. Sophia had apologized, and I believed she meant it. We were no longer husband and wife, but maybe we could manage to be civil, if only for Clara's sake. My phone buzzed with a text as I turned the ignition. It was from Natalie. "How did it go? Everything all right?" I typed back a concise reply. "Yes, we talked." She apologized. "I'm okay." Headed home. With that, I pulled onto the road, clouds breaking overhead to let in a sliver of pale sunlight. The day felt a fraction brighter. A short drive later, I walked into our house, greeted by Emma's excited chatter. She was testing out possible dresses for the upcoming wedding. Natalie appeared from the hallway, worry in her eyes. When I nodded reassuringly, she exhaled, hugging me. "I'm so proud of you," she whispered. Relief spread through my veins. I kissed her forehead, letting Emma's giggles float in from the living room, letting the softness of our shared life cushion me. I'd faced Sophia's remorse head-on. It hadn't undone the betrayal, but it chipped away at the rancor festering between us. And that, I realized, was what I needed. Not to forget, but to release the grudge so I could truly move forward. 2 months after that tense but necessary meeting with Sophia, I found myself standing in the middle of our living room, boxes of floral decorations piled around me. It was a balmy Saturday morning, and bright sunlight poured through the windows, illuminating the house that had grown from a mere structure into a genuine home. The day had finally arrived, our wedding day. My brother David and his wife Marissa were bustling about, helping me check last-minute details. "You sure you want to do the ceremony in your own backyard?" David asked, taping a string of lights along the patio door. "You could have rented a fancy venue." I shrugged, a fond smile tugging at my lips. Natalie and I decided we wanted something intimate. The backyard is perfect, plus. We built this place together. Feels right. It had been months of planning, balancing finances, and discussing whether to keep it simple. In the end, we chose a small, elegant ceremony at home, followed by a casual reception. Enough tradition to make it special, but not so much pomp that it overshadowed the reason we were gathering. Outside, I spotted a small archway being assembled by Natalie's sister, Elena, and her husband, Jacob. They hammered stakes into the lawn, then draped white tulle and fresh flowers over the frame. Emma bounced around them, occasionally squealing about how she'd toss flower petals down the aisle. Meanwhile, Clara was arranging chairs in neat rows. Watching her move about with calm assurance reminded me how far we'd come. When I walked over, Clara glanced up, a warm smile creasing her face. "Hey, Dad, is this row spacing okay?" I nodded, giving her arm a gentle squeeze. "Looks great. Thanks for the help." She brushed her hair aside, revealing the hint of a proud grin. I'm just glad I can be part of this. I never thought well, I'm happy. My chest tightened with emotion. Me too, I almost said, but my voice jammed. Instead, I just returned her smile and helped reposition the chairs for a better angle. The late spring breeze smelled of fresh grass and blossoms, giving the day a light, hopeful air. By midday, the backyard had transformed into a charming wedding space. Rows of white chairs faced the arch, pastel flowers lined the aisle, and a small table stood off to the side holding the marriage license and rings. A local officiant someone Natalie found through a friend arrived, checking her notes and greeting us politely. I appreciated her relaxed vibe, which matched our laid-back approach. I retreated upstairs to get dressed, stepping into a bedroom that had once felt half empty but was now filled with Natalie's touches soft drapes, a plush rug, a framed photo of Emma and Clara goofing off. I stared at the mirror, adjusting the collar of my crisp white shirt under a simple gray suit. My reflection stared back, a man who had faced betrayal and heartbreak yet somehow ended up here, on the brink of a second chance. David popped in wearing a navy suit. "You decent?" he teased, leaning against the doorframe. I smiled, turning to face him. "Barely. My tie's crooked. Mind helping?" He chuckled, stepping forward to straighten the tie. "You nervous?" A breathy laugh escaped me. "A little, mostly excited. Feels surreal, you know?" He nodded, eyes holding quiet pride. "I remember how devastated you were, Andrew. I can't express how happy I am to see you forging a new path." He finished adjusting the tie, patting my shoulder. "Ready to go get married?" My chest fluttered with warmth. "Yeah," I said, voice tight. "Let's do it." Downstairs, guests were taking their seats. Some of Natalie's co-workers, a few of my closest office friends, plus our families. Emma darted past wearing a pale pink dress, flower petals in a small basket. She paused to give me a hug, grin splitting her face. "You look fancy, Andrew, I mean, Dad," she corrected with an impish giggle. "Mom looks so pretty." My heart swelled. I bet she does. I can't wait to see her. Clara sidled up in a soft, gray bridesmaid dress, eyes shining. "Mom texted me to say she's proud of you. She's not coming, obviously, but she's supportive," she said quietly, referencing Sophia's message from rehab. Part of me felt a pang that my first wife wouldn't see how I was building a new life, but I knew that it was best for everyone. "Thanks for telling me," I murmured, giving Clara a sideways hug. We shared a brief moment of acknowledgement our family had changed irrevocably, but we'd found a healthier place. That was enough. Music began a gentle piano melody from a small speaker. David gave me a nod, guiding me to stand near the archway. The officiant stood beside me, holding her folder of notes. My pulse throbbed in my ears, the hum of conversation fading into anticipation. The crowd rose, heads turning toward the house. Emma led the way, scattering rose petals along the aisle, eyes crinkling with delight. Then Elena and Jacob followed, each carrying small bouquets. Finally, Natalie appeared, stepping out through the sliding door onto the lawn. My breath caught. She wore a simple, flowing ivory gown that hugged her figure without excess frills. Soft curls framed her face, and in her hands, she clutched a small cluster of white and lavender flowers. Our eyes locked across the short distance. A wave of emotion slammed into me, love, gratitude, awe. She looked radiant, not in a flashy way, but in a warm, genuine glow that came from within. She reached the arch, and the officiant asked everyone to be seated. I held Natalie's gaze, hands trembling slightly as I clasped hers. She mouthed the words, "I love you," just audible enough for me to hear. My throat tightened. This was it. The ceremony was brief but heartfelt. The officiant spoke of trust, second chances, and the power of choosing hope despite past wounds. I squeezed Natalie's hands, remembering the countless evenings we'd spent in quiet conversations about our fears. She recited her vows, voice thick with tears, promising to stand beside me, to share in my joys and burdens, and to trust our bond no matter how uncertain life became. When it was my turn, my mind flashed to the betrayal that once defined me, the bitterness I'd carried, the revenge I'd taken. But the man speaking now was different. My voice shook as I vowed to protect Natalie's heart, to uphold honesty and tenderness, to listen even when it was hard. I acknowledged the scars of my past, but declared my readiness to walk a new path with her. By the time I finished, tears were slipping down her cheeks and probably mine. Clara and Emma stepped forward with the rings, each carrying one. Emma giggled, practically bouncing in excitement, while Clara smiled serenely, placing the ring in my hand. We exchanged the simple bands, sliding them onto each other's fingers. My chest felt like it might burst from the sheer force of love swirling around us. The officiant beamed. By the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. Andrew, you may kiss your bride. A ripple of applause went through the gathered friends and family as I cupped Natalie's cheek, leaning in. The kiss was gentle, filled with relief and warmth. Breaking apart, I glanced out at the small cluster of people cheering. David winked at me. Clara dabbed at her eyes. Emma hopped in place, squealing, "They did it!" Soon after, we walked hand in hand back up the aisle, which was really just a short path across the lawn, but it felt like stepping into a new reality. Music swelled again, some romantic tune that David had cued. Hugs and congratulations rained upon us. The archway around us shimmered in the midday light, flowers bobbing in a light breeze. Natalie turned to me, whispering, "This is perfect." My pulse thrummed. Absolutely. I kissed her forehead, basking in the sense of rightness that enveloped us. The reception that followed was an informal affair. People mingled in the backyard, sipping lemonade or wine from plastic cups while sampling a modest buffet. At one point, Emma tugged on my sleeve, insisting I dance with her. She pulled me onto the makeshift dance area, basically a cleared patch of grass. Clara joined, showing off a silly routine that left both kids in giggles. Natalie soon stepped in, arms wrapping around my waist to sway gently with me. I caught a glimpse of David filming on his phone, grinning like a proud uncle. Eventually, Clara asked the DJ to play a father-daughter waltz. My heart fluttered, remembering how uncertain we'd once been around each other. She came forward shyly, offering her hand. "Dad," she said, voice quivering, "I'd love to share this dance with you." Emotion welled in my chest. "Of course," I managed. We moved through a slow, graceful circle, the crowd parting to watch. Memories of teaching Clara to walk, to ride a bike, to trust me, mingled with the knowledge of how we'd almost lost each other. Now, here we were, forging a bond stronger than betrayal. She blinked back tears, smiling. "I'm proud of you, Dad." I swallowed, voice catching. "I'm proud of you too, sweetheart." The music ended, applause swelling from the guests. We broke apart, both slightly misty-eyed. Natalie stepped up, slipping her hand into mine, and the warmth of her presence reminded me of the vow we'd just sealed. As twilight crept across the sky, David gave a short toast about second chances. Then, surrounded by flickering string lights, we cut a small wedding cake, laughter punctuating each moment. I caught Natalie's eye and she mouthed, "Thank you," referencing how far we'd come. My heart soared, feeling more at peace than ever before. Later, as guests departed and we began tidying up, I realized I'd never expected to stand here again married, hopeful, with a supportive family. Once, I believed Sophia's betrayal would define my life. But leaning into Natalie's shoulder under the twinkling yard lights, I realized how that betrayal had instead propelled me toward growth, new love, and renewed faith in relationships. My wife slipped her arm around me, whispering, "We did it." I nodded, pressing a kiss to her hair. We had done it, indeed chosen love over bitterness, building something steady on ground once devastated by lies. The day that began with a flourish of nerves ended with quiet contentment, leaving me grateful for every twist and turn that led to this shining moment. Sunlight streamed through the kitchen window as I poured cereal into Emma's bowl, her chatter filling the morning air. A week had passed since the wedding, and life felt both familiar and subtly transformed. Natalie sat at the table sipping coffee, flipping through real estate magazines. She shot me a warm look that said, "We're married now," and the reminder sparked a little thrill in my chest. "Dad," Emma said, absent-mindedly crunching her cereal. "At school, I told everyone about the wedding. My friend said it's so cool I got to be a flower girl and a camera operator." She grinned proudly, referencing the short video she'd recorded while we were at the cabin. That clip had made its rounds among family members, with Emma as the star cinematographer. I chuckled, ruffling her hair. Well, you did a great job. Maybe you'll become a film director someday. She perked up. Oh, that's an idea. Natalie smiled, leaning over to peck my cheek. If she does, we'll remind her where it all started. Moments later, Clara descended the stairs, hair in a loose ponytail, college brochures under her arm. Morning, she mumbled, grabbing a slice of toast. Dad, can you look at these with me later? I nodded, glancing at the colorful brochures. Various local colleges, each offering a different environment. Pride swelled in my chest. Clara's final year of high school was winding down, and she was ready to take on the world. Absolutely. Let's set a time after dinner, yeah? She gave a grateful smile. Thanks. I appreciate it. Natalie pointed to her watch. We better hustle. Emma, get your backpack. Clara, you need a ride, or are you driving yourself? Clara shrugged, stuffing brochures into her tote. I'll drive. I'm heading to the cafe after school. She paused, eyeing Natalie. Thanks for letting me keep my car here, by the way. Natalie winked. Of course. Part of being a family is juggling each other's parking spaces. As they bustled out, heading to their respective days, I exhaled, leaning against the counter. This domestic swirl of activity was everything I once feared I'd never have again shared breakfasts, casual goodbyes. The sting of betrayal lingered in the distant past, overshadowed by a household brimming with affection. I could almost hear my old self whisper, we made it. Later that morning, I sat in my home office, scanning design plans for a new logistics system. Despite my focus, a small folder on my desk caught my eye. Consulting business proposal. A half-formed dream had been nagging at me for weeks now. Ever since the wedding, I'd felt a spark. Maybe it was the optimism. I was considering branching out, starting my own consulting firm to have more control over my schedule and be closer to the family. I flipped open the folder. Inside were notes about potential clients, financial projections, risks, and benefits. It wasn't the first time I'd toyed with the idea, but I always hesitated, worried about stability. Now that I had Natalie's unwavering support, the notion no longer seemed impossible. A soft knock on the door made me look up. Natalie peeked in, a slight frown on her brow. Hey, everything okay? You're awfully quiet in here. I gestured for her to come in, showing her the folder. I've been thinking about starting my own consulting company. The job at Alpha is fine, but I want more freedom, especially with Clara heading to college soon and Emma still growing up. Time is precious. She scanned my notes, brow furrowing. Then a slow smile blossomed. I knew you had an entrepreneurial streak. This looks detailed. She flipped through the pages. I think you'd be great at it. And I can handle the finance side if you need help. Relief swept me. Really? You're not worried about us risking a steady paycheck? She shrugged, setting down the folder. We'll be careful. I earn decent money at the bank and we have some savings. If you feel it's right, we'll make it work. I believe in you, Andrew. My eyes stung with gratitude. Leaning over, I kissed her softly. Thank you. Let's talk about it more tonight. That evening, after the usual family shuffle, Natalie prepping dinner, Emma finishing homework, Clara returning from her part-time shift, we sat around the living room, discussing everything from Clara's potential college choices to my consulting idea. Emma was more interested in whether we'd get a cat if Dad started working from home, but I gently deflected, promising to consider it. At one point, Clara brought up a delicate subject. Dad, have you heard from Mom recently? She's been sending me updates about rehab, says she might get out in a month or two. A hush fell over the room. Natalie gave me a gentle nudge to respond. I cleared my throat. She called me a few days ago, just a short conversation. She's focusing on her outpatient plan. I think she's serious about turning her life around. Clara nodded, relief mixing with hesitation in her gaze. She mentioned wanting to reconnect with me once she's stable. I want to give her a chance, but I'm also scared she'll backslide. I mustered a small smile. Totally understandable. I support you building a relationship with her if you're comfortable. Just keep your boundaries. You're not responsible for her sobriety, okay? She looked down, chewing her lip. Thanks, Dad. I appreciate that. Then she forced a lighter tone. Anyway, About colleges, can we talk scholarships? We spent an hour sifting through brochures, discussing tuition costs and distances. Emma eventually fell asleep on the couch, her mouth hanging open in childlike abandon. The warm lamplight illuminated the swirl of papers as the three of us, me, Natalie, and Clara, debated the merits of in-state versus out-of-state schools. In quiet moments, I marveled at how natural it felt to have this family dynamic, forging a future free from bitterness. In the subsequent weeks, my consulting idea gathered steam. I scheduled discreet lunches with potential industry contacts, gauging interest. Linda, my old divorce attorney, surprisingly referred me to a corporate lawyer who helped draft basic documents for a new LLC. Each step felt like a leap, but Natalie's unwavering support fueled my confidence. During one of these busy afternoons, I got a text from Clara. "Dad, need a ride home from campus? Car's in the shop." I left a meeting early, picking her up at the community college where she was taking a couple of advanced classes. She slumped into the passenger seat, backpack weighed down with textbooks. "You all right?" I asked, pulling away from the curb. She exhaled. "Just tired, finals are coming. By the way, did you know Mom's celebrating 6 months sober soon? She texted me that she wants to do something small once she's officially out." I glanced at her, noting the flicker of hope. "That's good news," I said, measuring my tone. "I'm proud of her for staying committed." Clara studied my profile. "You sound calmer about Mom these days. Not angry." A wave of realization washed over me. "I guess I'm not," I admitted quietly. "She hurt me, yes, but I've moved on. Revenge seemed so important once, but now I have more to protect our family, my new marriage. Holding on to anger would poison what we've built." Clara nodded, relief in her eyes. "I'm glad, Dad. I think she's truly sorry. Maybe once I'm in college, I can worry less about all that baggage." When we arrived back at the house, I found Natalie and Emma in the kitchen, giggling over some inside joke. Emma announced, "I made brownies," though the smudges of chocolate on her face suggested she'd done more taste testing than baking. The scene was so cozy, so ordinary, that it made my heart ache with gratitude. That night, after the kids went to bed, Emma tucked in after reading a chapter of her newest fantasy book. Clara, retreating upstairs to study Natalie, and I ended up on the living room couch, wrapped in each other's arms. The room was dim, the only light coming from a small lamp. She rested her head against my chest, toying with the buttons of my shirt. "How's the consulting plan?" she murmured, eyes half closed. I inhaled her familiar scent, letting the warmth of her body calm me. "Better every day. If this keeps up, I might launch by next month. I told my boss at Alpha I'd give them a heads up soon." She smiled against me. "I'm so proud of you." Silence stretched comfortably for a minute. The hum of the fridge and the distant chirp of crickets our only soundtrack. Then Natalie lifted her gaze to mine. "You know, I've been thinking about the future, about us. Are we open to the idea of expanding our family further?" My breath caught. We'd touched on the subject before, never with great detail. "You mean having a child together?" She nodded, a hint of vulnerability in her eyes. "Emma's 8. Clara's almost an adult. We have a stable environment now. I just wanted to see where you stand on that." Emotions swirled in my chest, fear of losing what I had, excitement at the thought of raising another baby with Natalie. The chaotic memories of fatherhood with Clara, overshadowed by betrayal, nagged me. But then I saw the gentle conviction in Natalie's face. She was strong, supportive. We had a real partnership. "I'm open to it," I said softly, heart thumping. "If you're sure, we can talk more plan." A radiant smile spread across her lips. "We'll take our time, no rush. Just knowing you're open means a lot." She snuggled closer, pressing a kiss to my jawline. I closed my eyes, letting the possibility unfurl in my mind a child born into the stability and love I'd finally discovered. Outside, a light breeze rattled the windows, reminding me of how easily life can shift. But the difference now was that I no longer felt pinned by fear or vengeance. The bleak memories of Sophia's betrayal had given way to a deep sense of renewal. In the quiet hush of a late summer evening, I stood in our backyard, the sky a canvas of deep blues and faint stars. Months had passed since the wedding, and each day had etched new layers of contentment into our blended family. Light laughter drifted from the house where Natalie and Emma were baking cookies. Clara had gone out with friends but would be back soon. We'd planned a small family dinner. Crickets chirped in the hedges, and the garden lights glimmered on newly planted flowers. I took a deep breath of the warm air, a sense of fulfillment settling over me. Memories swirled unbidden. The anger, the carefully plotted revenge, the heartbreak. I closed my eyes, letting the tension slip away. My life had pivoted so drastically since then my new consulting business was gaining traction. Clara was on the cusp of her college journey. Emma had started calling me Dad in public without hesitation, and Natalie was the steady core that bound us all. Footsteps rustled behind me, and I turned to see Clara approaching, a gentle smile on her face. "Hey, Dad," she greeted, hands stuffed in her hoodie pockets. The front door was locked, so I came around back. I gave her a playful smirk. "You know, you could carry a key like the rest of us." She shrugged, returning a grin. Too conventional. Stepping up beside me, she gazed at the yard. "It's so peaceful here. I remember when we first moved in, it felt kind of empty. But now it's full of life." Her words mirrored my own thoughts. "Yeah, we found our footing." I paused, clearing my throat. "So, how was your night out?" Clara's eyes brightened. "Good. We watched a movie. Then Mom called. She's doing really well, Dad. She says she's been sober 9 months now and has a part-time job lined up once she's fully out of the program. She's even dating someone new from her support group." A swirl of conflicting emotions coursed through me. Relief, mild apprehension, but mostly acceptance. "That's great," I said quietly. "I'm glad she's stable." Clara nodded, a soft smile curling her lips. "Yeah, me too. She sounded healthy. I don't feel the same tension I used to when she calls." A hush descended for a moment, the crickets filling the silence. Clara shifted, pulling something from her pocket, a small brochure from a local college. "I wanted to show you this program I'm applying to graphic design. It's only a few hours away, so I can come home on weekends." Pride swelled in my chest. "That's fantastic," I said, scanning the brochure. "You'll be amazing at it. I remember your doodles when you were 10 filling every notebook you had." She laughed softly, eyes flicking to the distant horizon. "Feels like a lifetime ago. Thank you, Dad, for believing in me even after everything." I draped an arm around her shoulders. "Always, Clara. We've come a long way." Suddenly, from the open living room window, Emma's voice floated out. "Dad, cookies are done, and you promised to help me with that puzzle." Clara snorted. "Seems you're needed." I ruffled her hair. "Can't keep the young one waiting. You coming in?" She shook her head, glancing at her phone. "I'll be there in a minute. Gonna text a friend real quick." She shot me a playful wink. "Tell Emma I said not to eat all the cookies." Stepping inside, I was greeted by the fragrant aroma of chocolate and a rush of cool air from the AC. Emma was setting a plate of fresh-baked cookies on the coffee table, face glowing with achievement. Natalie emerged from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a towel. She offered me a tender smile that still sent warmth surging through me. My ring caught the light, a glint of silver that reminded me how far we'd come. "That smell is divine," I said, inhaling deeply. Emma proudly handed me a cookie, and I took a bite, the rich sweetness melting on my tongue. "Better than any store-bought treat," Emma beamed. "I might open a bakery someday, or maybe I'll film a cooking show." Natalie let out a soft laugh, settling next to me on the couch. She placed a hand gently on her abdomen. The slightest curve was there a subtle sign that we'd decided to go through with having a child together. We hadn't broadcast the pregnancy yet, just close family knew. But each day, Natalie's body changed a bit more, a quiet testament to the new life we were creating. I pressed a light kiss to her temple, sliding an arm around her. She leaned into me, eyes shining. "I feel so content," she whispered, so only I could hear. My heart throbbed with a matching emotion. A short while later, Clara joined us. We put on a family-friendly movie, Emma sprawled out on the floor with pillows, me holding Natalie close, Clara perched on the love seat. The glow of the TV flickered across the walls. It was such a mundane scene, yet the simplest moments sometimes held the greatest power. Mid-movie, I slipped away to fetch a glass of water, crossing through the dimly lit hallway. That's when a wave of reflection hit me. I paused, setting my hand against the wall. There, taped to the plaster, was a family snapshot we'd taken after the wedding. Me, Natalie, Emma, and Clara, arms linked, wide smiles. If someone had shown that photo to the old Andrew Carter, the one crushed by Sophia's affair, I wouldn't have believed it possible. My phone buzzed in my pocket, pulling me from the reverie. A text from David. "Congrats again, big bro. Proud of your new consulting gig. Let's celebrate soon." Another anchor in my newly rebuilt life reminding me I wasn't alone. I typed a quick reply. "Definitely. Thanks for always being there." Returning to the living room, I found Emma perched on Clara's lap, fast asleep. Clara motioned for me to stay quiet. "She conked out halfway," she whispered, gently brushing Emma's hair aside. The TV's volume was low, the movie's credits rolling silently. Natalie rose, stretching. "Let's get her to bed." Together, we coaxed Emma awake just enough to walk her upstairs, Clara trailing behind with a giggle at Emma's drowsy mumbling. After tucking her in, we flipped off the hallway light. Clara offered a quick "night, Dad," and disappeared into her room. Downstairs, the house was serene, only a soft lamp glowing in the corner. Natalie sank onto the couch, beckoning me over with a small smile. I joined her, my arm wrapping around her shoulders. The lamp's glow caught the subtle curve of her belly, and a rush of protectiveness filled me. Her gaze locked with mine. "You okay? You got quiet earlier." I sighed, letting the contentment wash over me. "Just thinking about how far we've come. Sometimes it feels surreal." A gentle nod. "We had a lot of hurdles, your past, my past, Clara's struggles, Emma's innocence, but we navigated them together." Her hand found mine, fingers entwining. "I love our messy, blended family." I chuckled softly, pressing a kiss to her knuckles. "Me too, more than I can ever say." Silence settled as we held each other, the hush of night wrapping us in a cocoon of safety. My mind replayed snapshots of the darkest days, discovering Sophia's betrayal, orchestrating a revenge that seemed righteous at the time, grappling with the fallout on Clara. But those images no longer carried the same sting. I'd forgiven myself for the bitterness, forgiven Sophia for her choices, even if it had taken every ounce of willpower. We heard a faint thump overhead, probably Emma shifting in her sleep. Natalie and I exchanged a fond look. "Parenthood round 2, she murmured, resting a hand on her belly again. A ripple of excitement and nerves tingled through me. "I can't wait," I confessed. "It'll be different this time, raising a baby in a stable home with honest love at the core." Her eyes shone. "Exactly. That's all I ever wanted for both of us." Eventually, we switched off the lamp, heading upstairs for bed. In the darkness of our room, I slipped under the covers, heart thudding with quiet gratitude. Natalie tucked herself beside me, her warmth a reminder that I wasn't walking this path alone. Before sleep claimed me, I let my thoughts drift to the future. Clara would leave for college, forging her own road. Emma would keep exploring her passions, secure in the knowledge she had a father who cherished her. Sophia would hopefully continue her journey of recovery, forging a new life. And Natalie, she was my partner in every sense, carrying our child a symbol of hope and new beginnings. A small grin tugged at my lips. We made it. The betrayal that once consumed me had lost its power, replaced by acceptance and the quiet strength of a family rebuilt on honesty and care. Even if bumps lay ahead, I felt ready to face them, anchored by the love we'd nurtured. My last conscious sensation was Natalie's hand on my chest, her breathing synchronizing with mine in the hush of midnight. Deep contentment washed over me. Life could be painful, unpredictable, but here and now, it felt right. Truly at peace, I thought, drifting into a restful sleep.